Initiating live stream. There we go. There we go. Now we have audio again. Had to get a gnome crash out of the way. Had to do a real quick gnome crash. Okay, now that the gnome crash is done, we can get started. This is going to be a quick pre-show because we're going to get started really fast. Mr. Chase is already en route. Just pushing a few more buttons, and then it's Unfilter time. 260, guys.
Mommy needs a joint.
Reclaiming my time. Oh my gosh, it's Anderson Cooper, everybody!
So let's do this. I think I'm just about ready. We got a pretty packed overtime, so I should probably start pretty soon. There's just a couple of things left for me to do, which would be probably pretty smart. Otherwise, I might be a little disappointed in myself.
While you're laughing, the hackers are dropping malware into your system.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying, guys? Who wants that? Nobody wants that. See, like I put a little special net neutrality logo on the Unfilter frame this week. We do need JB Unfilter emojis in Discord. That's a great point, Zan. All right, well, we're about to start. If you want to join me in the chat, it's discord.me/JupiterColony. There's a dedicated Unfilter channel there. If you're an IRC guy, irc.geekshed.net, and then there is a Unfilter chat room. And that is where we're going to be.
Oh my gosh, it's Anderson Cooper, everybody!
Okay, so what else is there? Anything? I feel like I wanted to start the mixer monitor. That's right. I want to get the mixer monitor up, so let me do that really quick, and then we are good to go. Okay, I got my squeaky chair today. Woo, woo, woo. Let's double check that. Boomsies, there we go. There, ha ha, ha ha, ho ho, ha ha. Why do I have a mouse on my... Why? Oh, because it's on my other screen. Jeez, I got too many screens. All right, here we go. Let's get the overtime kicked off nice and quick here, right? No screwing around on this pre-show. It's right down to business. And it's the overtime for episode 260, and it begins in 3, in a 2. Don't hit pause just yet. Actually, that's too close for a transition. Sorry about that, Beard. Here we go in 3, 2. I'll give you a little transition room. Don't hit that pause button just yet, because it's time for overtime! Thank you to our 6 new patrons this week who are staying woke. Matthew, Levi, Nicholas, Byron, Benjamin, and Sean, our new patrons at patreon.com/unfilter, keeping this an independent show with our only priority being the audience. We keep ourselves accountable to our patrons at patreon.com/unfilter. Thank you for supporting this show. And this segment is dedicated to you, all of our patrons, and all of our future patrons. One more time, say it with me, patreon.com/unfilter. Now this week, we're going to use the Oh Nancy segment to keep an eye on the establishment Democrats, the corporatists. Let's just call them corporatists because they're not really left. They're not really right. They're corporatists. And one of the top corporatists in this whole gang is Hillary Clinton. And she was in an interview recently with Harvey Hugh, I think his name is. He's sort of a quasi-conservative radio host. And so I was kind of surprised that she went on there, to be honest with you. It's not normally her kind of scene. And she goes on there and she actually made a rough reference to Pizzagate.
To work together across partisan lines. I mean, the things that were said about me, the conspiracies that were promoted about me were just incredibly shocking. I mean, I mentioned them to people, and at first they look shocked, and then they laugh a little, and I said, it's really not that funny, because when somebody says something about you, like, oh, my gosh, you run a child trafficking ring, or some ridiculous accusation, it does tear at the body politic. We could have
some ridiculous accusation, like a child sex trafficking ring. Where would ridiculous accusations like that originate from? Surely it couldn't just be the politics of a presidential election. No, my friends. In fact, if we jump in the Wayback Machine, I take us to 2013.
It's over here, and we are following this breaking news out of Washington. Some serious allegations this morning facing the State Department.
That's right. According to internal State Department memos, the agency might have called off or intervened in investigation into possibly illegal and inappropriate behavior within its ranks, allegedly to protect jobs and avoid scandals. This concerns the time that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. We want to get right to NBC's chief White House correspondent, Chuck Todd, with the latest. Chuck, good morning to you.
Good morning, Savannah. There's an old saying in Washington that the cover-up is worse than the crime. But in this case, both parts of it are disturbing. Allegations of prostitution and pedophilia, and allegations that those crimes were somehow covered up or not looked into. So the State Department this morning...
I wonder if maybe this could be the origin of some of these conspiracy theories.
...is having to respond to those claims and those investigations of misconduct by State Department officials, including by an ambassador and security agents attached to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
I feel like security agents, Secret Service agents, and other security guards don't get enough credit when they come out and say, hey, this person that I spend a lot of time with, they're doing something.
And the allegations are that these investigations were whitewashed, quashed altogether, and that those orders came from high up.
Oh!
NBC News has obtained documents related to ongoing investigations into some disturbing allegations involving State Department personnel and at least one ambassador. A State Department memo says the ambassador, quote, routinely ditched his protective security detail in order to solicit sexual favors from both prostitutes and minor children. The memo also says a top State Department official directed department investigators to, quote, cease the investigation into the ambassador's conduct. It's just one of what another document describes as, quote, several examples of undue influence from top state officials. On Monday, a State Department spokesperson not confirm specific investigations.
I'm not going to talk about specific cases, but I can say broadly that the notion that we would not vigorously pursue criminal misconduct in any case is preposterous.
A former investigator for the department's inspector general has complained to Congress and the media that the investigations have not been thorough because of the pressure from those high-level officials.
We take every allegation of misconduct seriously, and we look into it.
It was less than 6 months ago that another major internal investigation painted Hillary Clinton's State Department in a negative light. That scathing report on the failed diplomatic security procedures in the aftermath of the Benghazi attack.
What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened.
Yours, actually.
As we noted, the whistleblower in this case, a member of the Inspector General investigative team at the State Department.
An investigator general member of the team. So somebody who would be in a position to know.
She's gone to Congress demanding an investigation. And
she has. So it's obviously some sort of masochist attack. It's obviously the men hating Hillary because she's gone as a whistleblower.
And it's our understanding Congressman Ed Royce, the leading Republican in House Foreign Relations, says he does plan on having an investigation, and no doubt hearings are probably going to come soon.
Actually, no. Chuck, sorry to say, hearings never came. We don't do that. She also made reference to Uranium-1, only I think she might be onto something.
The first New York Times story came out about The Server by Michael Schmidt and Matt Apuzzo. Your team, according to Eric Wemple,
Also, a little tidbit of information here. When the first story about her email server came out, her campaign staff totally destroyed the careers of the New York Times reporters. I don't think that's been talked about very much.
Washington Post came to beatdowns with clubs. They really just shattered those guys' reputation, forced them backwards, and unapologetically so. Did they protect you too much, and did they hit back too hard at legitimate critics and questions?
Yes.
Well, let me answer that this way, Hugh. I think, as I say about the book, I did think that I had to be careful in public, and probably I did have my guard up too much. You know, those days are over. I am trying to be as candid and open as I can be because I think there's a lot at stake, and if my voice can help us get our country back on track where we begin to have reason-based discussions about our differences again and try to chart a path forward that actually makes sense and can be supported by facts, I want to be part of that debate. So I will take responsibility because clearly it is challenging when the press, and not just the press on the right, but the press in general, decide that, my emails are the most important story.
Now let her get past her bitterness over the coverage of her classified emails that were being sent over a private server in a basement. Let her get over that bitterness and listen to what she says about Uranium One and the comparison she makes.
Of the campaign, and that clearly was just pounded day after day after day. And, I take responsibility for the mistake I made, but it was a pretty overblown scandal as far as scandals go. And then when there is a deliberate effort to, misinterpret facts, like the whole Uranium One charge, that is something that has been kept alive despite constant debunking. Similar to the tragedy in Benghazi, where, I testified at length. I answered every question. There was, I think, 8 or 9 investigations, more than half run by Republicans in the Congress, and they all came to the same conclusion that, I had not done anything wrong, and it was, not enough, and it became still a big political drum to beat against me.
So what say you, chat room and Discord and listener on YouTube or somebody who wants to send in their feedback at jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact? Is Uranium One the new Benghazi for Hillary Clinton? Lots of mud, but nothing sticks? I don't know, that's kind of been my position, but I'd like to know what you guys think. She seems to think it is. Of course, that would be her position. Meanwhile, Maxine, she wants to inspire people. How? Oh, she wants to inspire people not just by reclaiming her time.
Reclaiming my time.
Which is her bit now. But she inspires them by demanding the impeachment of Donald Trump. I find this to be a fascinating little rift that is developing because for all intents and purposes, her and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all the other corporatist Democrats are all together. They're a pretty tight-knit group. Except for when it comes to this one issue. Pelosi would like Waters to just shut the hell up about impeaching Donald Trump. Shut up. Shut up.
Banks in this country.
Congresswoman, I want to ask you about the Glamour Magazine Women of the Year Awards. You were honored there the other night.
Oh, yeah.
I congratulate you on that.
Oh, yeah, that's
But
great.
I'm curious about your comments as well. You led a chant, Impeach 45, obviously talking about President Trump there.
Yes.
What do you hope to achieve with that kind of talk at this point? I mean, we have the Mueller investigation going on, but let's say for a moment that it ends up incriminating the president in some way eventually. It doesn't seem to be wrapping up anytime soon. So why spend your energy on calling for an impeachment, for example?
Well, let me just say this. I have learned over the years that I've been in this business that there are few people who are willing to speak truth to power and to talk about what really is bothering our society and our democracy. It is not thought well of to step outside of that box. When I talk about impeachment, I describe what I think about this president. I think he's deplorable. And I think he defined himself in the campaign, the way that he mocked and mimicked a disabled journalist, the way he talked about grabbing women by their private parts, the way he called names of his peers, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's unacceptable. And for people to allow this kind of behavior to be normalized is beyond what I believe our democracy should be all about. And so I encourage people and I inspire people and I show people that you don't have to be intimidated, you don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to be traditional. You need to step outside of the box and tell it like it is. That's what I do. Everywhere I go, I say impeach 45. And I get people knowing and understanding that perhaps he should be impeached and focused on what he's done and the way that he's defined himself, his relationship with Putin, who we won't even criticize. And the fact that there's a belief that there has been collusion and obstruction of justice, it's all there. I'm going to talk about it everywhere I go.
Well, I know what to expect the next time that...
Yeah, and you're going to discredit the Democratic Party in the process because you look like fools. You can't call for impeachment until there's evidence that demands impeachment. Otherwise, you just look like a bunch of idiots that are out with a political agenda, and the American people can sniff that a million miles away. Maybe CNN's sniffing the way things are blowing because they actually asked a couple of poignant questions recently.
Congressman, you issued a series of scathing tweets about the Attorney General and about the President before, during, and after the congressional testimony yesterday by Attorney General Sessions. You attacked his appearance, mocked his look, saying he looked like Kate McKinnon, who plays him on SNL, but you also repeatedly called him a liar. To prejudge his testimony, I mean, your tweets about him being a liar were before he even appeared in front of you. Why is that appropriate? Why prejudge him?
Because he lied to the U.S. Senate. After he made his statements, evidence came out later that showed his statements under oath to the U.S. Senate were in fact false. And by the way, I am choosing words that the President of the United States uses on his own Twitter.
Oh, just like somebody's parent. You're so... Well, actually, that's not true. But doesn't he kind of have like this parental tone right now? He has this weird, like, I'm teaching him with his own medicine kind of tone, which is sort of the attitude of a schoolyard playground and not so much... Well, actually, nope, it's pretty much perfect for D.C. politics now they think about that.
By the way, I am choosing words that the President of the United States uses on his own Twitter. I'm throwing those words right back at the administration.
Okay, but does that make it right? I mean, do you like seeing the President use words like that, like Lion Ted, so then you repeat them?
I am absolutely highlighting it, and until the President changes, I'm going to keep doing it because I do want to highlight how ridiculous it is.
Highlight it.
Absolutely.
Is that a grown-up thing to do? Congressman?
I love that question. I love that question so much.
Is that a grown-up thing to do, Congressman?
Okay, producer Matt, if you're listening, I know it's a little early. If you're listening, producer Matt, you've got to get me a clip of that. That somebody needs to isolate that out for me.
Is that a grown-up thing to do, Congressman?
So you remember when Michelle Obama had that beautiful line, right? When they go low, we go high. My view is when they go low, we fight back, and I'm going to fight back.
Well, there you go.
When they go low, we stay low?
I'm fighting back.
Yeah.
I'm going to
You're
use
tough
the
guy.
President's own words against him, against his members of his administration.
You're a tough guy, aren't you?
I'm going to throw it right back at him. Absolutely.
Is that what you would
Yes,
teach?
if he calls people's names, I'm going to call people names.
Oh, he's fired up now.
Because I think it's inappropriate for the President to do that.
Inappropriate? He thinks it's inappropriate. Well, if he thinks it.
Is that what you would teach your children to do? Is that what we should teach our children to do?
I teach my children they should stand up to bullies. The President of the United States is a bully. I am going to stand up to him. Absolutely.
Oh, boom. That is an interesting and awkward conversation they just had. So you remember last week we covered the NSA leak, the big leak, the most devastating leak in history. Well, here's a little extra filler to that.
A stream of leaks has the NSA on its heels tonight. Intelligence officials are blaming a secret group called shadow brokers for leaking complex codes used for hacking. Manila Chan is joining us tonight for more on this. This is intriguing.
Yeah, and that's right. Perhaps it's low-hanging fruit, but now it's problems within the NSA itself being blamed directly on Russia. One of the NSA's most top-secret groups, called Tailored Access Operations, or TAO for short, served as the NSA's hacking arm for the better part of the last decade. They developed code and malware that would help the spy agency do its thing for years before.
I mean, I'm sorry to be this guy. I shouldn't do this, but is malware not code? Seems like malware and code would be the same thing if you're going to just be as general as code. I'm sorry.
Hacking arm for the better part of the last decade. They developed code and malware.
Yeah, see, that's the same thing, really. If malware, guess what malware is made of? It's made of code.
That would help the spy agency do its thing for years before Edward Snowden blew the doors off many secrets back in 2013. And the slow drip became a flood in August of 2016 when a mysterious group calling themselves shadow brokers published the agency's most dangerous cyber weapons. But now, 15 months into a wide-sweeping investigation, the agency's counterintelligence arm known as Q Group, along with the FBI, still don't know if the agency was a victim of a brilliant hack or an internal leak. But still, officials are quick to blame Russia. NSA veteran and whistleblower Bill Binney shared some insight on the inner workings at the agency.
Bring it to us, Bill.
Since Obama basically opened up the gates of NSA data to all the other intelligence agencies, then only added thousands of more people that could look at the data, which meant if there was a leak of any of that information, it would mean thousands of more people would have to be investigated.
You know, take the politics out of this, that's a fundamental truth. If you just give thousands of more people in the federal government access to this information, you're going to have more leaks. He knew that. He must have known that.
Since 2015, only 3 employees have been arrested for taking classified information, but there is still fear that there are so-called plants or moles within the agency still working among the others. These hacking jobs, though, tend to draw young computer whizzes, but according to veteran employees, after the initial appeal of working as an agent wears off, these young hackers grow bitter from the bureaucracy and often leave for higher-paying private sector jobs in cybersecurity.
Plus, they want to smoke a joint.
Thus creating a revolving door and poor morale in the office. So, Ed, the more research I did about this hiring and firing process, the constant turnover within the NSA, it became apparent to me that the problem the agency was facing was more of a human resources issue than anything else. But rather than resolve the problem within their internal agency, it might just be easier to just blame Russia and go on with the day.
Well, in reality, they'll outsource is what they'll do. So think about this for a moment. Imagineer this for a moment. Picture it. Sicily, 1983. You're all excited. You know, you're fresh out of school. You're going to get a pretty well-paying government job. It's not the best-paying job, but it's a government job. And, you know, you're patriotic. You're not overly patriotic, but you think, you know, America's kind of the best nation in the whole fucking world. Hoorah. And so you go in there and you're all jacked up. You're jacked up on fucking America. You're jacked up on your new education. You're jacked up on the fact that you got a cushy government job that's going to give you good medical. It's going to give you a good retirement. You don't have to work super hard. And 6 months go by. 9 months go by. 11 months go by. 18 months go by. And you realize it's a hellhole. You got to attend meetings every single day. You're looking at reports constantly. You're not really doing anything that matters. And you're seeing all of these violations that you thought you were there to protect the Constitution. But man, it sure looks like we're violating the Constitution every single day. And people have no idea how bad it even is. They only have just a picture of it. I'm seeing all this stuff. And this just really seems like people ought to know about this. And this place isn't that great of a job, and I could make a lot more money somewhere else, and it clicks. That seems like that's actually a pretty realistic scenario. In fact, it seems like that's probably what happens all the damn time, right? So let's shift gears. Let's go from speculating about NSA leaks, and let's go to the new branding campaign for the U.S.'s campaign in Afghanistan. No, it's not about the children this time. It's about the drugs.
In an interview moments ago from Kabul, the top U.S. commander in Afghanistan announced a series of airstrikes on Taliban drug labs in northern Helmand province that he said were funding the Taliban insurgency. It was clear from listening to General Nicholson that the new strategy after 16 years of war is to brand the Taliban insurgency as a narco-insurgency, perhaps as a way to sell the ongoing war.
Yeah, you think? You think? Perhaps. Yeah, you see, this is a bullshit story. This is, we're going to break it down for you right now, but I think it'd be better to break it down if we go with something that's a little more pure propaganda. NBC is all in on the new branding.
For the first time, hitting the Taliban where it hurts, targeting the drug labs that double as money machines for the insurgency. F-22 stealth fighters and B-52 bombers dropped 2,000-pound bombs to obliterate heroin refineries.
Man, the media loves themselves some really high-end war machines, don't they? They just love weaponry.
One cooking 50 barrels of drugs, according to the Pentagon.
So these are huge warehouses. And as you all know, huge warehouses just crop up out of nowhere, and you have the funding to have a warehouse like this just in your back pocket. And these things just materialize in a couple of days. We all know that to be true. And so what happened is our incredible intelligence apparatus and our Pentagon, who was on the ball all the time and perfectly communicating with that intelligence apparatus, within a couple of days of this giant warehouse and this huge operation with all of these barrels that just set up overnight. Just set up overnight, guys. And within a couple of days, the Pentagon and the intelligence agencies, they communicated, they discovered it, and they destroyed it. And now we're going to the heart of what? I'm sorry, what? Oh, this shit's been going on for 12 years. Uh-huh. These guys have been in operation for years and years and years, and we've just been what? Oh, I see. So we've always known about this. Uh-huh. And we're just now, well, that doesn't make any sense.
The top commander in Afghanistan, General John Nicholson, says the airstrikes deep in Taliban territory were only the beginning.
So now we're going to strike them in these areas, and then we're going to work with the Afghan army as they go on their offensive operations in the spring to expand control into these areas.
Yeah, because nobody's going to control the drug market out of Afghanistan except for our CIA. Nobody. Yeah, this is definitely about rebranding the war effort in Afghanistan. And why might we want to do that? You know, like when Comcast got a lot of shit, they tried to rebrand Xfinity. It's a good tactic, really.
The International Criminal Courts requested judicial authorization to investigate alleged war crimes committed during the war in Afghanistan.
Maybe that's what this is about.
But that could be difficult, as Samira Khan investigates.
The International Criminal Court is developing a case on alleged war crimes in Afghanistan and seeks a formal investigation.
There is reasonable basis to believe that war crimes and crimes against humanity have been committed in connection with the armed conflict in Afghanistan.
The main focus of the ICC's case is the Taliban, the Afghan government, and the U.S. military. As for the last of these, the prosecutor's office has revealed dozens of instances of torture and ill treatment allegedly carried out by U.S. forces.
Members of U.S. armed forces appear to have subjected at least 61 detained persons to torture, cruel treatment, outrages upon personal dignity.
One site notorious for abuse in Afghanistan is the CIA Salt Pit prison, described by the media as a sadistic dungeon with barbaric conditions, where torture reigns with little oversight. While the evidence has been available to the public ever since secret CIA documents were declassified by the U.S. government, the CIA actually referred to it as enhanced interrogation techniques, which included sleep deprivation, isolation, cold showers, and rough treatment. But here's one case.
All right, so there you get it. I don't think you have to listen to their montage. We're about to get some shit for what's gone down in Afghanistan, so now it's time to rebrand our effort as a humanitarian effort for the whole world, because solving the drug trade in Afghanistan solves it for the whole world. You know, we're really good at solving problems. We're good at solving the world's problems from our perspective. Local issues, not so good at. You know, like things like lead in the water. You thought Flint, Michigan was bad? Turns out it's way worse in a lot more places. A lot more.
It's not just Flint, Michigan that's dealing with lead poisoning. More than 3,800 areas across the country have levels of lead poisoning that are at least double those seen in the height of Flint's crisis.
Yeah, he said double.
That's according to a new report by Reuters news agency, which spent the last 2 years obtaining lead testing results for 34 states in the District of Columbia. The poisoning risk stems from old paint, leaded soil and water, as well as hazardous toys and health supplements.
Health supplements is an interesting little one, isn't it?
I know it could make you very sick and very ill.
The data shows a number of children were exposed to lead in about 1,300 hotspots. Blood tests showed levels at least 4 times higher than those in Flint, Michigan. Lead paint and leaded gasoline were phased out decades ago, but the poison was found in areas from Pennsylvania to Texas to Indiana.
It's scary. It's scary for any mother to go through this. Any parent.
Some of the highest levels of lead were found in children living in Savannah, Georgia, areas of Rutland, Vermont, and parts of Brooklyn, New York.
So there was a huge outrage for Flint. Will there be a large outrage for everywhere else? I doubt it. I doubt it. There's been an outrage over the whole new tax reform. It resulted in the shouting match that your good buddy and your good friend caught.
Hey, gang, I have something to bring to your attention and to our viewers' attention. It happened this evening, and we have just received video. This was a dust-up as part of the Senate Finance Committee tonight. Their voting out of committee this tax bill. Want to show you this exchange, that's a polite word for it, between Orrin Hatch of Utah, the senior Republican senator, president pro tem of the Senate, which, as you watch this, remember, puts him third in line to the presidency, and the Democrat of Ohio, Sherrod Brown. Each one of them, as you'll hear, taking their side in the tax debate. But it was notable that this broke out the way it did tonight. We'll talk about it on the other side.
I've been here working my whole stinking career.
Stinking.
For people who don't have a chance. And I really resent anybody saying that I'm just doing this for the rich. Give me a break. I think you guys overplay that all the time, and it gets old. And frankly, you ought to quit it.
Mr. Chairman, the public believes it.
I'm not through.
Oh!
I get kind of sick and tired of it. True, it's a nice political play.
Well, Mr.
But
Chairman,
it's not true.
with all due respect, I get sick and tired of the richest people
Regular order,
in the country
Mr. Chairman.
getting richer and
Regular order.
Regular middle. We do a tax
Regular order.
middle class.
Wait a minute.
Regular order.
And over and over again.
Wait just
How
a
many
second.
times do we do this before we learn this?
It's funny because he's arguing with the chairman. That's never a good idea.
Listen, I've honored you by allowing you to spout off here. And what you said was not right. That's all I'm saying. I come from the lower middle class originally. We didn't have anything. So don't spew that stuff on me.
That's right.
I get a little tired of that crap. And let me just say something. If we work together, we could pull this country out of every mess it's in. And we could do a lot of the things that you're talking about, too.
There you go. They both knew the cameras were rolling, I think, in that particular case. But a pretty good exchange nonetheless. Now, here's a clip that really shows you how the elite really view this Russia investigation. They laugh at it. They know it's all a political witch hunt.
But I just was thinking, I should want to ask you, is Ambassador Kislyak in the room? Before I get started here.
Yeah, this is Jeff Sessions, and yes, it's his audio that's too loud. It's not the clip. It's the clip. It's the clip. It's not you. It's not me. It's the clip. It's him. He's shouting into his microphone. And this is Jeff Sessions at the Federalist Society, the Law and Public Policy Studies, and he's cracking Russia jokes. And listen to the laughing here.
The room. Before I get started here. Any Russians?
They're laughing.
Anybody been to Russia?
They're laughing at it. It's a joke to them. It's a joke. Now, speaking of a joke, apparently there's some that consider the president a joke.
All right, new this morning, the Republican push for tax reform might be getting a key boost.
From Alaska. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski says she does support including the repeal of the individual mandate of Obamacare in this bill. While her spokesman says it's not clear if she's made a decision on how she will vote, she is certainly seen as a crucial vote for Republicans who want to get their tax cuts through. Joining us now, Democratic Senator Tom Carper. He is on the Finance Committee. Thank you for joining us.
So one of the Democrats on the Finance Committee was in a meeting, and they're all sitting around a table, as they do, and they're talking about the tax reform. And I can just imagine how that conversation's going. And while Trump is in Asia, he decides to call in. This in itself is an interesting little glimpse into the actual job of the president. While he's off on a world trip, he calls in, goes on speakerphone, and goes into salesman mode for a policy plan. And I think that's it's an insight into one of the more genuine jobs of the president, what he really does behind the scenes. And this time, they weren't having it.
To get their tax cuts through. Joining us now, Democratic Senator Tom Carper. He is on the Finance Committee. Thank you for joining us. So you were part. Good morning. You were part of this call with the president while he was in Asia on taxes. And at one point, it's reported that you looked over to his chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn, and said to him, quote, "We're not going to have a real conversation here. Can you just tell the president he's brilliant and say we're losing the connection and hang up?" Seriously?
I wonder why they had to say he's brilliant, too. Isn't that interesting? They're Democrats, remember.
Seriously, and he did. And we've been having about a half-an-hour conversation with Gary, with Mark Short, and with Shahira Knight, the three people from the administration. Had a great conversation. They're asking questions about 10 more moderate Democrats and trying to see if there's some kind of middle ground on tax reform. About 30 minutes into the call, Gary gets up and takes a call on his cell phone, comes back into the room, and he says, "We have somebody calling in from Asia." And it was the president, which was nice. It's nice of him to do that. 15 minutes later, the president's still talking. And I said to Gary, and it was a room where...
you can picture it, right? Trump's on the phone, he's on speakerphone, and he's just reading something that's been given to him. And he's just railroading the conversation, not giving them a chance to speak because he's pitching, he's selling. And you just keep going. You hammer it, you hammer it, you hammer it. You all the good features. Don't let anybody get in there with what's wrong. Just keep going. Tell them why it's great. Say thank you guys so much, and then hang up. And they didn't want to let that little power play happen.
15 minutes later, the president's still talking. And I said to Gary, and it was a room where we're all sitting around this big square table, and I said, "Gary, why don't you do this? Why don't you just take the phone from your cell phone back and just say, 'Mr. President, you're brilliant, and but we're losing contact, and I think we're going to lose you now, so goodbye.'" And that's what he did, and he hung up. And then we went back to having the kind of conversation that we needed to, where they asked good questions, looking for consensus, looking for common ground. And I think we've identified.
The CNN hosts look at each other and are literally I don't know, Discord, if you're watching the video version, give a descriptor to that face right now. That is, so the male host is absolutely delighted. And the female host is shocked that he's willing to say this on air because he's about to get in massive trouble. So this, not only does this reveal the president's real job to us and how the Democrats can basically still play him and say, "You're brilliant," hang up on him, and then go to tell everybody look how irrelevant he is. "Hey, everybody, your president's a fool." So they go on air and they do that. And the CNN hosts are just amazed that they're actually getting a legitimate news story. What you are about to witness is the fact that these two hosts can't believe they're actually getting real news out of this guy. And they're going to warn him even. You're not supposed to give us real news.
Went back to having the kind of conversation that we needed to, where they asked good questions, looking for consensus, looking for common ground. And I think we've identified a little bit.
That is his way of saying, we got the real work done once we hung up on the president. That's the message of this interview. That's why he's willing to go on air and say this. But your CNN hosts here are so blown away by the fact they just got real, honest information out of a politician that they completely miss that.
Consensus, looking for common ground. And I think we've identified a little bit.
Are you sorry that Gary Cohn faked a bad connection to get the president off the phone?
I'm sorry, say again?
Are you saying Gary Cohn faked a bad connection to get the president off the phone?
Well, I wouldn't. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but yes.
I think you just did.
Yeah, that's the bus. I think the bus just thrown
right
there.
The bus is passed.
He wanted to make sure he could have that kind of conversation. And that's what we really need to do. There's areas where we can agree on this stuff, but you have to ask the right questions and be a good listener.
Gary Cohn, call your office right now because you might be getting a call from Florida shortly. Let me ask you, sir, Lisa Murkowski.
Call your office. Call your office. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny to see them totally realize, oh shit, we just got actual news. Now, I watch a lot of news. I watch a lot of U.S. news in particular. I really do. I watch a lot of U.S. news. But as you saw earlier in the show, we're also watching other networks in other countries. I'm often watching Chinese news. I'm always watching the BBC. And more these days, I'm getting news out of Australia. And you saw that a little bit earlier in the show. And there was a moment when I was capturing Australian news that went down as my favorite political segue of all time. I've never seen this. I just love it. It's so much better than U.S. news. So I wanted to end the overtime with this.
And a final observation on the same-sex marriage debate from Bob Catter.
I mean, you know, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities, you know. I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned, you know. But I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
So we should put the whole country on hold until we sort out that particular problem.
Makes a very compelling point.
Politicians are the best. In every situation, they can manage to segue into their particular agenda. You gotta give them credit.
Mommy needs a joint. Mommy needs a joint. Reclaiming my time.
While you're laughing, the hackers are dropping malware.
Oh, okay. So, Chase is stuck in holiday traffic, I'm guessing. Let me check in. Oh boy, is he. Poor dude. Man. But he's making, you know, he's not too far away. But that just means you guys get extra live exclusive clips. Zan, I just saw that. That's good, dude. Okay. I got so many extra clips we could play. Let's start with schools kicking a kid out. This school kicks a kid out because of something he wore. And it's not like boobies. It's not like a gangster-like thing. Like, when I was in school, you got a lot of trouble if you wore, like, gang affiliation shirts. That was the big thing. And now, apparently it's a totally different thing.
A school, I should say, nixing a 7th grader's t-shirt because he was mocking CNN. Look at that t-shirt. They were taking a tour of the network. Jackson Jester's his name. He was heading on a field trip to the network's Atlanta headquarters when a teacher asked him to remove the FNN, or fake news network, t-shirt. His parents want the school to apologize to Jackson directly, saying that he has the right to free speech.
Man, you know, give me a break, right? I mean, it's understandable if you're going to go tour a CNN. That's pretty ridiculous. Okay, so I have something that I almost played in the show that I just feel like could be this would be if Unfilter just wanted to take a minute and just shit all over the media, I would use this clip because it's a perfect example of how they take something that is completely ridiculous, that has been set up for comedy, and they use it to actually create news discussion. This is the definition of fake news right here.
Caught on camera, the disturbing reaction to the American flag as it is waved on one of the country's most liberal campuses.
Now, they don't tell you in the setup that this guy is a comedian, that this is his own footage that he has selectively edited for the best possible reactions, and then they're just taking that whole cloth and running this as news.
I love America. This country stands for freedom. Yeah.
God is not proud of us. America
this country.
Great. Well, here's what happened when that same filmmaker shouts jihad rants while waving an ISIS flag at Berkeley.
God, these guys are a couple of idiots, aren't they? I think the only intelligent one on this entire couch is the female host in the middle, and she has to sit between these two idiot knuckleheads.
I stand against America. ISIS protects Islam. I denounce the United States.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Thank you.
I love that you're saying that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That filmmaker, Ami Horowitz, is back with us for his
comedian. He's a comedian.
Latest experiment. Ami, pretty disturbing from what we saw. How much did you edit that to get a certain persuasion? How much? What do we get?
Yeah, I mean, what you see there is basically reflective of the general sentiment that I experienced there. So with the American flag, for example, the vast majority of people came up to me had a extraordinarily negative response.
Reclaiming my time.
From something as innocuous as, hey, America's not great, to F America, which we got over and over again. Now, to be clear, there were a few supporters, but they were outweighed significantly.
This is what you call artificial, which is like a fake sweetener. It's like an artificial news. It's artificial. There's also another story that's kind of weird, and I didn't get a great clip of it for the show. Hold on. I got to squeak out the chair. The chair's got some important squeaks in it. I got to get out real quick. I didn't really get a great audio source for the show. I'll show you what I mean. This is my example right here of a clip that doesn't quite meet the cut for Unfilter, but is actually still kind of interesting.
The submarine ARA San Juan, missing since Wednesday in the icy waters of the South Atlantic. A huge international search and rescue mission is now underway, including U.S. Navy planes and underwater vehicles, hoping to find the 44 crew members alive.
I want you to know that we have tripled the search effort, both on the surface and underwater. These ships are following the submarine's planned route, sweeping the whole area.
But the operation has been hindered by conflicting clues and major storms in the search area over the past 24 hours. With waves of up to 20 feet reported, some ships were forced to turn back, while others are operating at limited capacity. If the submarine has sunk but remains intact, the crew should have a week to 10 days of oxygen. But it's unclear if the rescue operation is focused in the right area.
Wow.
The sub lost contact near the British-owned Falkland Islands, an intelligence target for Argentina. The Argentine Navy isn't commenting on the sub's mission, but it's ruling out British or American submarines joining the search and rescue, saying they don't possess the type of technology needed to find the San Juan.
What the hell does that mean? Think about that for a second. Does Argentina have like some sort of cloaking technology that the United States doesn't know about? That is a huge part of the story that I cannot get more information on, and that's one of the reasons why this didn't qualify as a go.
They don't possess the type of technology needed to find the San Juan.
If you know more about that, please tweet me the link, because I'd like to read more about what the hell that means.
Sending a submarine to the area to perform some type of search wouldn't add anything because they don't have the technology or the elements to be able to do an underwater search.
What the fuck does that mean? What? What? How does a submarine not have the elements to do an underwater search? What does that mean? A couple other stories. So I got two stories about RT. Number one is that Google's going to de-rank RT articles.
Google is now working to reduce the presence of Russian media outlets in its news feeds. And with more details on this story now, we'll cross over to Caleb Maupin, who joins me live from Washington. Caleb, what's Google up to?
Well, Eric Schmidt, who is the owner of Alphabet Incorporated, which is the parent company of the tech giant Google, he was being interviewed. And when he was being interviewed, he was asked about RT and Sputnik, which the person asking the question labeled as propaganda. Now, this is the exchange that went down with the head of the company that controls Google.
I had a subscription for Google Alerts in German language and getting them every day. Out of 10 results, between 5 and 10 every day were from Sputnik News, which is a Russian-German propaganda outlet. And when I clicked on them, they were monetized with Google AdSense. Is it really necessary to monetize Russian propaganda outlets with Google AdSense?
So we're well aware of this one,
and we are working on detecting this kind of scenario you're describing, and again, deranking those kinds of sites. It's basically RT and Sputnik are the two.
So as you just heard, the head of Google is saying he doesn't want to ban these sites, but apparently if you search for stories in your news feed, stories from RT and Sputnik will be way down. They will not be coming up in the top search results, and Google seems to be actively working to make that happen. Now, our channel has been the focus of a lot of attention over the past year. Congress has been pressuring different social media outlets and others to take action. Our American wing, RT America, was recently forced to register as a foreign agent. Back in October, RT was removed from Google's premium ad list. And then 3 weeks later, Twitter started not permitting the purchasing of ads by RT.
So how is Russia responding? Well, they're also taking actions, and they're basically doing the same thing on their side.
The upper house of the Russian parliament has voted to adopt a law on foreign media operating in Russia. Medina Kochenova has the details.
The upper house of the Russian parliament this Wednesday approved the law on foreign media working in Russia. Now, under this new piece of legislation, any foreign media which receives funding from abroad could be asked to register as a foreign agent. And as soon as this media is given this new status, the status of a foreign agent, it should use a special disclaimer in its work, and it will also be obliged to file reports on its funding to the Russian government.
Typical Russian response. Respond in kind. You kick out some diplomats, we kick out some diplomats. You expose one of our secrets, we expose one of your secrets. You arrest one of our spies, we arrest one of your spies. It's always how it's like the Russian tit for tat. It's always been that way. Not overly interesting, I suppose. I have a couple other things for the live stream. This one's a little gross. I guess I'm going to say this. If you're a supporter, I probably already said this in the show at some point. Whoa, there's a plane. Like, you hear that? You guys can hear that when I talk. There's a plane going overhead really close to the studio. Probably just an NSA spy plane. Okay, here's one. I would just say this. There's some clips in here that are maybe a little disturbing, that I don't want to really kill the mood, because we're just killing time until Chase gets here. He's only a few minutes away. But there's some clips in the supporter sync that would be worth your time if you really want to go all in.
Welcome back to RT America. The Department of Justice plans to file a lawsuit Monday to block the AT&T Time Warner merger, according to insiders. But what are the real reasons being suggested? Legal and media analyst Lionel of Lionel Media joins us now to explain. Okay, Lionel, what are the official reasons for the objections and complaints to the merger?
Well, there's a couple of different versions. First, Anya, there's a lot of people out there, liberals and conservatives and the like, who find this merger problematic. Names like Elizabeth Warren, Al Franken, well, maybe not Al Franken's a good name, but anyway, Bernie Sanders, not just Trump. So you have one particular faction who sees, for a multiplicity of reasons, why it might be a good idea not to merge. But, Anya, you know what they're saying about Trump. They're saying this is about CNN, that the merger's contingent on basically jettisoning and getting rid of CNN. That doesn't mean CNN's going to fold. It just means that CNN will be cut loose, or perhaps might be even more of a problem to Trump if that's indeed the case. But you know what the latest one is? This is even more interesting. I mean, who thought years ago vertical mergers, that we were even talking about this? It's boring until now. The latest version of this, Anya, is that what Trump is doing is to grease the skids and make it possible and make it more powerful for the Sinclair group to come in. Sinclair, who will own basically and be in 2 out of every 5 markets. That's what they're saying is the reason for this. So you have 3 different versions, which kind of makes sense, but fascinating nonetheless.
And what exactly does the DOJ seek to enforce here, Lionel? Why are so many concerned about a potential Time Warner AT&T merger?
It always comes down to the notion of competition. How is it, and this is really the only concern, really, but how does this affect the consumer? In a vertical merger versus a lateral merger, where competitors are gobbled up, but in a vertical merger, it's always thought that it's axiomatic that the consumer always benefits. You consolidate efforts and resources, you pass the savings on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, AT&T's lawyer, trial lawyer, a very established Daniel Petrocelli, who, by the way, sued O.J. Simpson years ago, made a very cogent case and a very cogent reasoning that he and AT&T have gone through absolute painstaking review from every legal scholar. But because this is Trump, and because he said, I want CNN out of the equation, and remember, he can turn to Elizabeth Warren, as said, and Bernie Sanders. This proves to be fascinating. And like I said, Anya, you very rarely see mergers that are this sexy. It remains to be seen.
And in about the 30 seconds we have left, can you just...
No. All right, so he gave her a great rap, and she just blew it. She really blew it right there. Okay, so I have a few other stories. Try not to bring the mood down. It's hard, you know, because there's so much shitty news these days. Okay, well, it's a lot of RT. So you can tell that one of the things I do is a lot of the RT stuff doesn't make it in the show. So when we do the live stream only, there's a lot of RT stuff. But here's an interesting one. Ingram Angle.
All right, we have so much news for you tonight. We could
God, I hate these people.
actually use 2 hours, but we can only take one. We have an infuriating opening segment for you. Congress, get this, is spending your money to cover up sexual harassment and some major developing stories for you on other fronts. President Trump returned moments ago from his 12-day trip to Asia. We're going to have a report about...
Oh, I really can't stand her for some reason. It's something about people that really just love themselves to a point where they think that, I don't know, there's something about it when they're seething with self-love. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That's a bad way to put it, because self-love is kind of a good thing. But it's this sort of narcissism that seems to come off certain people that I just can't stand.
About what he's doing next. And why are immigration agents complaining about the president?
I don't know what it is. I can't do it. I don't want to kill my mood. I'm in a good mood, and let's do this. Let's talk about taxes.
Bill is passed.
Celebration
Bill is
on the House
passed.
floor after Republicans passed a bill that would cut taxes by more than $1.4 trillion over 10 years.
Look at them.
Slash the corporate tax rate to 20% from 35%, and simplify the number of tax brackets.
It's about giving people more take-home pay.
Man, this last year has been rough on Paul Ryan, hasn't it? 2017 has not been Paul Ryan's year.
It's about raising wages.
Today, President Trump was on Capitol Hill before the vote to rally the House. Behind the scenes, he's also focused on the Senate, where tax reform faces the highest hurdle after Republicans inserted a surprise provision to repeal the Obamacare individual mandate. Tonight, another obstacle. The Joint Committee on Taxation estimated the Senate bill would raise the average tax rate for those making between $10,000 and $30,000 in 2021, and on all income groups making under $75,000 in 2027. The leading Republican on the Finance Committee, Orrin Hatch, calling the findings misleading. Republican Ron Johnson opposes the bill.
I will work my tail off over the weekend to fix this problem so we can move forward with a pro-growth tax
Just
reform.
looking at the president has said the GOP tax bill will cost him.
And it's not good for me, believe me.
But according to an NBC News analysis based on Mr. Trump's leaked 2005 tax return, the House bill passed today would save the president more than $20 million, and his heirs could potentially save $1.1 billion.
What they got to try to do is convince most Americans that this is not going to be just a sop to the wealthy, but that's going to help the middle class, and that is going to be a hard sell given what's in this bill.
And tonight, the Russia probe is back in the spotlight with congressional investigators.
You gotta love that rough segue.
Saying Jared Kushner failed to turn over key documents last month.
Oh, shut up. You're spoiling show stuff. Shut the... God damn it. Keep your stuff on point, can't you? Can't you keep your stuff on point? Okay, so let's see. What else can we do? Okay. All right, this is kind of interesting, actually. This is probably going to get the live stream taken down. I was probably doing great until this, and now this is because they put some stupid cheesy music in the background, and then they upload to YouTube, and they copy. This really gets me, actually. Just a quick aside. This clip I'm about to play is going to unrightly ding our live stream for copyright violation on YouTube, which may make it harder for me to post it for our patrons. The reason why it's going to get dinged is because I'm about to play a clip that has rights-free music. But because they've used that royalty-free, rights-free music in a clip that they have content ID'd, that music is no longer playable. Even though it's legally allowed for me to play that music, it's licensed to allow me to play that music. I could play this music because it's in a clip that NBC has uploaded to their channel. I'll get dinged for that music. I hate YouTube.
Powerful men accused of sexually exploiting younger women. Lately, we've seen one bombshell story after another. News like this used to be rare, but not unheard of. 41 years ago, a sex scandal involving a powerful member of Congress rocked Washington.
Congressman Wayne Hayes of Ohio may be smiling in this picture, but he was sputtering with anger today because of an allegation made by a former member of his staff that he employed her to act as a sexual partner. The woman is named Elizabeth Ray. She says she was paid $14,000 a year and that her only job was to provide Hayes with sex.
What do you think you were getting the money for? Wasn't there a quiet understanding on your part?
Oh, sure, I knew. I was getting the money for seeing my boss.
For having sexual relations?
That was very clear to me, yes.
Ray famously said she was hired even though, quote, I can't type, I can't file, I can't even answer the phone. At first, Congressman Hayes denied a relationship.
All I can say is she was put on the payroll to work from 9 to 5, the same as everybody else. If she says that she was put on the payroll to be my mistress, it's a total lie.
Hayes was a powerful committee chairman, and many constituents back home stood by him.
I think they're going to try to make something out of this to get rid of him politically.
Hayes fired Ray and attacked her personally.
I feel badly about the whole thing. She's obviously a very sick young woman.
But the next day on the House floor, he admitted to the affair.
He said he didn't care if he was remembered as mean and arrogant. He hoped no one would say Wayne Hayes was dishonest. Hayes left the floor of the House to the applause of the House membership.
There was applause for Hayes' confession, but not everyone in the House was exactly in despair to see him get caught, since he is something less than the most popular member of the House.
Hayes retreated to his farm in Ohio, hoping to tough it out. It didn't work. 3 months later, he resigned in disgrace.
And so, after 28 years in Congress, that is the end of Hayes' career.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, I guess. Hello. Okay, hello, Mr. Chase.
Hello.
Why don't you read something for me so I can set... Oh, there we go.
Hold on, I'm
All right, you adjust away, and then I'll you got it. Ooh, get that adjustment in there, Chase. Ooh. There we go.
All trademarks and copyrights on this site are owned by their respective owners.
That must be Discord. Boo-boo-boo.
Thank you.
I'm having one of those days where Dropbox doesn't fully drop. Yeah, I guess Dropbox has gone home early for the holidays.
Well, everybody has.
Well, if you're in the Discord or the IRC, please start bang suggesting as we go here, because we're going to try to name this here shenanigans, and we could use your help.
Did you know the UK does not celebrate Thanksgiving?
And you know that Canada has it at a different time.
They have it on the 1st.
I actually don't understand why Canada has Thanksgiving, because my understanding of Thanksgiving is it had some shit to do with Native Americans and the pilgrimage and all this stuff. And does Canada?
I thought it was a Macy's holiday.
Why does Canada have Thanksgiving?
Why not?
But they don't. Did they have a pilgrimage with Native Americans?
Well, they went there first.
Did they have a Mayflower?
Maybe they stopped there to get fuel.
Mayflower.
Yeah.
Did they have a Mayflower?
I think they have a starbase up there.
Okay, all right. So it's time for us to do a fucking show.
Stardate A.
Do you want to get logged in first before I start the show?
Let me get lubed up here and get all nice and shiny.
You do what you do. You do what you do. No beard today.
Nope.
Can you
what? Wait,
can you feel it?
whoa.
Can you feel it? Can you tell a difference? Is there a balance difference?
You shouldn't have said that.
Why?
Now we have no net.
I know. We're flying without a net.
We're flying without a net.
Yeah.
Wait, flying without a net?
Well, jumping without a net? Podcasting without a net?
Jumping without a chute.
Yeah.
Walking a rope without a net would be appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know about flying without a net. We'll have to go to the judges on that one.
Okay. Yeah, we'll punt to them. We'll see what they say. Yeah, he's out picking up. He's picking up a lady.
Wait. What?
He legitimately is. He's down at the airport picking up a lady who just flew in.
Would it happen to be like family member, or is this a personal lady?
Yep.
Oh,
a lady friend, you might say.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why I haven't really seen him streaming much?
Mm-hmm. It is. It is.
Oh, I love it.
He's been planning for moving in together and all that. He talked a little about it in news.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they're looking for a place in Seattle.
Wait, they don't want to live in Seattle.
It's so funny, dude. Everybody,
they don't want to live in Seattle.
Everybody fucking says that. Everybody. And I've tried to say that to him. Everybody has said that.
Does he not realize? Okay, so I work in Seattle. First
if
off,
you listen to User Error, he's under the impression that you can't get good internet anywhere but downtown Seattle in Washington. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that Angela has fiber optic internet at her house.
Why don't you tell him, like, at my house
I know,
alone?
You have great internet.
I have 150 down, 150 up.
I know.
Now,
I know. Seattle is just like, when you don't, if you make great money, if you're making great money, then go live in Seattle. Or if you have dual incomes where together you're making pretty good money.
Politics will make you go insane.
Yeah, man. Well, everybody has to learn their own way. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
All right, so let's go freak out about net neutrality. Oh wait, Chase is still. We're gonna freak out about net neutrality in a minute, Cub. Hold on. We gotta have Chase log in. Net neutrality is a topic that's extremely hard for me to cover because I have obvious skin in the game with Jupiter Broadcasting. So it's like I've obviously got some say in this, or I've got a bias in this. I just have to acknowledge it.
I have so many, like. Let me say this. There are some issues with Chairman Pai that I would love to talk about on this show, but I can't.
Oh, maybe we'll talk about it afterwards.
I mean, I can't even record them.
Maybe we talk. I
can't even stream them.
You and I will talk about it afterwards.
But I mean, I think you know why. There's another big thing that he's done.
Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
I bet that does color your.
Well, I mean, the way I see it is this. Okay. This is a lot.
Do you want to save it for the show?
I'll save it for the show.
Because I think this is sounding good already.
Yeah.
I can tell you're thinking about it.
Well, it's one of those things to me that I actually was thinking about last night. I'll repeat this thought for the show.
Okay.
Is that...
I'm holding you to it.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. It's like, everybody's up in arms over this, right? Yeah, I mean, we have...
Fired up.
I'm fired up and ready to go. I mean, you look at the front page of Reddit, everything is Battle of the Net, right?
Every subreddit.
Every subreddit, right? And the way I see it is... Maybe if half those jackasses, yes, and I'm calling them jackasses, got off the fucking couch and voted.
Oh, no. We'd have Hillary in the office.
No, it's not just about the national elections.
No, you're right. Yeah, that's true.
It's about everything.
I agree.
It's about getting involved locally and saying, hey, we want to get local fiber going. It's all these things.
All right, save it because you are getting me fired up, and I completely agree with you. Okay, because that's the thing. All right, so this is Unfilter 260, right on the money, and it's going to be about net neutrality. So help suggest a title about that, and it begins in 3, in a 2. This is Unfilter, episode 260 for November 22nd, 2017.
What we're seeing here is the cableization of the internet. If you like your cable company and the way in which they choose which channels you can see and the way in which they continue increasing their prices, you're going to love what happens under this repeal because suddenly the people making the rules are the networks.
welcome. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our friends here in the United States and the territories. Welcome again to another edition of Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's.
What's the matter?
I'm sorry. My traffic wasn't prioritized there. Sorry about that.
Did you buffer?
Yeah, I buffered a little bit.
I'm sorry. Could you say it again?
Jupiter Broadcasting's.
Chase. Oh, man. Let me hit play pause. Here. There we go.
Weekly show about the news you shouldn't be watching. My name is Chase, and over there is Mr. Chris. Hey,
buddy. It's good to be with you on this high-fidelity connection.
Thank you. Good thing.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have to worry about paying that prioritized traffic.
Yeah, so this week we are going to talk about net neutrality. We're probably going to spend the bulk of the show talking about net neutrality. We do have one other major cyber story that we'll talk about before we get there because it's sort of the most late-breaking news, I guess.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that. Then we'll dig into a little bit of Russia investigation stuff, and the Patreons have demanded it. Is it
Patrons?
Okay, patrons. The patrons.
Or patrons.
Patrons, but not Patreons.
Patreons.
Well, whatever you want to call them, they have
the awesome supporters of our show.
Okay, they have demanded that we talk about Yemen, so we're going to bring everybody up to speed on Yemen. We'll do a quick dive into the pervert parade, and we'll wrap it all up on a high note that may change everything and guaranteed to make you smile. How about
that's
that?
Nice.
How about that?
I like that.
So yeah, let's start with Uber, who covered up a hack just with $57 million.
What? Tonight with breaking news and reports that ride-sharing giant Uber has for a year been concealing a massive cyber breach that exposed the user data, including email, phone numbers, and addresses of over 50 million customers and drivers. The company doesn't believe the stolen information was used, but what it did, instead of going public with the breach, is raising some serious questions.
Yeah, it didn't tell anyone.
Our business correspondent, Jolene Kent, is here with late details coming in. Jolene, that's a lot of customers. What do we know?
It is indeed, and this is a major bombshell. Not only was Uber targeted in that massive hack, the company then concealed it for more than a year. Here's what we know. Hackers stole critical personal data of 57 million Uber users. That includes riders and 600,000 drivers. Personal information of passengers, including names, emails, and phone numbers, were accessed. And for those drivers, their driver's license numbers were stolen too. Uber says no social security numbers were taken and no information about trips. But instead of reporting it to regulators last October, as Uber now says is required by law, they paid $100,000 ransom to two hackers behind it.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. That's not bad. That's pocket change for Uber.
Oh, yeah, that's easy. Especially, when you have your customer and your independent contractor base right there. I mean, that's fine. Totally
Keep it quiet. Now, Uber's now notified federal authorities and fired the chief security officer. And it's just the latest hack of your information, Lester, from major companies, including 145 million people's data.
This needs to get to a point where this is criminal. I mean, because obviously paying fines that are small doesn't make a difference. And it goes down to Equifax. It goes down to all these companies, Target. Every company that's been loose with your data, the chief technical officer or their security officer gets fired. Sure, that's great. But in the meantime, we're the ones holding the lurch because no one's really being held accountable on this.
What happens with these stories, and it's the same thing that happened with this Uber story, is you were never going to hear about it until the CEO got ousted and a new CEO came in, and the CEO played a political game and said, I gotta tell somebody about this because if it comes out once I'm the CEO, I'll get blamed for covering it up. So the new CEO makes a political decision.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for the new CEO, we never would have found out about this. That's really and that is the thing that happens across the industry.
Oh, yeah. And this is one of those situations where things linger for long periods of time. We don't know. And then it comes out that our data has been leaked 6 months ago. It happened. Like I said, it happened with Target. Remember, things were delayed for a long period of time. So,
you know what bothers me
gotta be criminal
about the way that the media covers cybersecurity is, and I'm giving them the word. We've given them the word. Well, they can take cyber. That's fine. But what bothers me about the way they cover it is they try to convert it into physical world ideas and terms, and they can't really wrap their head around the true worldwide nature of the network.
I think you're missing, though. Who's their audience?
Right, exactly. I know.
And they
I know that's the restriction. No,
that's
I know.
the restriction. Huge restriction.
But the problem is, I think, it's one thing to get the right information and then package it in a way that is palatable to your audience. That's one thing.
Right.
It's another thing to go into the story with the bias that misinforms how you cover it. And so let's play this clip here. This is an NBC report, and they go inside a Russian troll factory. And the problem is it just reeks with all of the standard media propaganda things about how crime works on the internet. And it's such a child's version of it. Here we go.
Is this it? This is the building?
Yes, of course.
The troll factory?
Yes.
Tonight,
it's always a building. They always have a building. If it's an advanced persistent threat group, if it's a group that's named after
because it's physical, because it ties a physical, look and feeling to it. Like you see that physical object, you have a physical reaction.
That's not how it works.
I know. Oh, no, we know that.
I know, but see,
but that's what they're trying to paint a picture.
The fundamental flaw in the thinking here is that your enemy is contained in one physical location. If you are viewing the enemy in that means, then you are going to be fundamentally devastated by them.
The sad part about that, though, is somebody watching at home is going to go, well, all you got to do is just bomb that building. It takes care of everything.
Exactly.
Is this it? This is the building?
Yes, of course.
The troll factory?
Yes.
Tonight, a look inside Russia's disinformation campaign from 26-year-old Vitaly Bespalov, one of dozens of 20-year-olds churning out fake stories in what he calls a factory of lies.
Did you create fake accounts?
Yes, he said.
This is also part of the formula. You always get one of the former trolls, and that we've covered dozens of these stories over the years. You always get one of the former trolls to come out and blow the lid on everything.
As Bespalov worked inside Russia's Internet Research Agency for 3 months in late 2014. He'd write up to 20 fake articles a day, spinning the war in Ukraine.
That article would then be posted by a blogger and then be spread by someone in the social media department?
That was one way, he says, or bloggers would write fake posts and he'd quote them in the articles. Facebook told Congress Russian trolls posted 80,000 items from January 2015.
And this is another thing that all of these stories are always reliant upon, is they'll give you huge numbers. It was seen by 1 million eyes. It was 80,000 posts, and they make it sound like it's just this incredible number, because if that was money, or if that was hours, or if that was amount of people, that would be a shocking number. And so our dumb monkey brains go, holy shit, 80,000?
Right. Yeah.
But of course, in terms of Facebook, where things are calculated in the billions, 80,000 is nothing.
Insignificant.
They don't ever mention that either.
No.
It's kind of a typical piece. But it's circulating more and more. ABC had one, NBC had one, now CBS has had one, and that was NBC's right there. But I don't think that's really the thing we're here to talk about today.
No. What we're here to talk about today is
the thing that you and I can't help ourselves but talk about offline all the time, and that's frickin' net neutrality. So let's see if you and I agree with what this definition of net neutrality is, okay?
All right.
Here we go.
What is net neutrality? Today, FCC Chairman Ajit Pai shared a draft order rolling back what's called net neutrality. It's a plan that will affect every internet
Can we
user
pause for a minute?
this.
Yes.
What's with the music?
I think part of the problem is with covering net neutrality, and there's very... Well, what would you guess? Because I have a theory, but I mean, if you're adding music to something, say,
is this coming out of the top of a break or something?
Picture, no, just that's a good. I got this a while ago, so I don't actually remember at what point in the broadcast it was. That's a great question, because that would make a difference. You're right.
Yeah.
But
because usually when I hear music,
backgrounder here for me is almost all of the U.S. clips I have on net neutrality from all U.S. stations have music.
Huh.
And so what do you do when you're trying to make something less boring? Like you're doing a talking face video on YouTube, you add a little music,
sure.
Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
I think the U.S. networks are afraid to talk about net neutrality in part because it's a boring as hell topic. In fact, I'll play another clip here in a moment, and you can see the host is struggling with the fact that the audience probably doesn't care at all.
Right.
So I think the music is their way of trying to keep people interested.
And I guess the ultimate question is why? Why don't people care? Why don't, I mean, that's one thing I don't
understand.
Because
it's about computers. It's about computers.
Yeah, they'll care when all of a sudden that their internet bill gets split up in 4 different ways from Sunday because what they want to get.
They'll have no idea why it happened.
Right.
What is net neutrality? Today, FCC Chairman Ajit Pai shared a draft order rolling back what's called net neutrality. It's a plan that will affect every internet user in this country. That means you. So let's take a look at what net neutrality actually is. It is the idea that all data must be treated equally. Proponents say the principle supports free speech on the internet by preventing internet service providers like AT&T, Verizon, Charter, and Comcast, the parent company of MSNBC, from speeding up or slowing down traffic on their network. The idea has been around since the early 2000s, but it wasn't until 2015 when the FCC used the Communications Act to pass rules making the concept policy and giving the commission more oversight on telecommunications companies. Now Chairman Pai wants to undo all of that. So what happens if he is successful?
So let's stop there, because I want to get a little pie in this episode.
Cherry pie? Pumpkin pie?
This is an interview with him. And I left the beginning of the interview on here because you can hear the host starts by defining what net neutrality is, but then has to walk back a rationale as to why repealing it's a good idea, because she's about to interview the chairman.
This is a right-leaning network?
Yeah.
Okay.
Another big story to bring you right now. Net neutrality. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai is following through on his plan to repeal these government regulations that were put back into place. The rules known as net neutrality prevent internet service providers such as Comcast, AT&T, Verizon from favoring their own digital services and slowing down those of the rivals. I know it sounds really complicated, but
no, actually, that's pretty straightforward.
That's pretty easy. And actually, you look at their new Fox translator, the idea that no restrictions should be imposed on content, platforms, or communications equipment for internet usage.
That's almost embarrassing that they're trying to argue against that. It's almost embarrassing.
Well, because, Chris, you got to realize that ever since this was put into place, it's really stifled innovation in the sector.
Yeah.
Services and slowing down those of the rivals. I know it sounds really complicated, but I promise he's going to make it easy for you. Ajit Pai believes that these rules are discouraging basically investment in new networks, and being able to provide faster online access in remote locations is pretty important stuff right now.
Yeah,
Yeah. One thing does not have to do with the other. Got it.
He joins me now. And Ajit, congrats. This is what you wanted to do.
Congrats.
Congrats?
Congrats.
Oh, my God.
Well, thanks, and it's great to be with you again.
We should say all that's really happened at the point of this recording is that a essential assassination date has been set. December 14th, right?
Yeah.
That's the day that net neutrality dies. For all intents and purposes, it has not actually happened yet.
And, and by the way, even if it does get voted on, you will be certain that there will be not just one, maybe 2 or 3, 400 lawsuits that will happen. So,
probably.
Yeah.
Trish.
I'm looking at the word net neutrality on our screen right now, and I'm sure people are sort of glazing over. Explain.
You see that?
Oh, my God.
Do you hear that? That is their concern that the audience gives almost no fucks about this.
Or I'm going to throw a little shade and maybe more bias on this. Maybe they're trying to make they're insinuating that I'm stupid. They're insinuating Americans are stupid.
Both. They're doing both.
Yeah, they're doing
They're
both.
insinuating that their audience couldn't give any fucks, and they're also insinuating that you're too stupid to understand, so you need it explained to you like a baby.
Explain that this is not a good thing.
Right.
Thanks, and it's great to be with you again, Trish.
I'm looking at the word net neutrality on our screen right now, and I'm sure people are sort of glazing
syllables.
over. Explain what that is, because you, I think, do this better than anyone, sir.
Oh, yeah. Better than anyone.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. It involves a basic concept of how the internet is governed. Do you want it to be governed by engineers and entrepreneurs?
He's not answering the question.
Or do you want it to be run by bureaucrats and lawyers here in Washington? Starting in the Clinton administration, there was a consensus on light touch regulation. We would let the market, as opposed to micromanaging regulators, decide how it was governed. That changed in 2015 under the Obama administration. And all I've proposed to do is simply return to that bipartisan consensus that served us so well for 20 years in favor of the market.
In favor of the market. Okay, so that's the argument for repealing net neutrality, is it allows for innovation in the market. Now, here would be the counter argument by the FCC, by the previous FCC chairman, Wheeler, who was Obama's FCC chairman and laid down the net neutrality regulation.
Which, full disclosure, by the way, when we all saw that
we thought he was going to be a
shill because of the fact that he was a former lobbyist for those groups. And so when he got in there, everybody was worried, and then all of a sudden he was like, holy crap, all pro-consumer, and like for us.
So so the recap here is if you have the FCC with its 1930s style regulations applied to the internet, that you'll suffocate innovation. Now, when they say the internet, it's also important to keep in mind that they're talking about the wired internet. They're not talking about cellular internet, where the vast majority of consumers are probably online now. They're talking about your wired home connection, and more importantly, they're talking about the backbone connections, which is really where the money is. It's not about you and your stupid DSL line. It's about Level 3. It's about Amazon. It's about those bastards at Netflix. That's what this is really about. You're going to get fucked too, don't worry, but it's really about them. And so there was some shit going down during the Obama administration that they got whiff to, that they decided we're going to put some regulations in place to slow this roll. And now the guy that did that, Wheeler, is going public with his side of why we should have net neutrality. So you have unhinged businesses, let them innovate freely, and now here's the counter argument.
Out strong against
Hello,
this
Emily.
potential rollback here. You've said that it is shameful, that it is a sellout. Why?
Well, you just have to listen to that explanation that Chairman Pai just had. Let's think about this. Transparency is the solution. So all that is necessary to do something evil is to tell you that I'm about to do something evil. That doesn't make any sense. And then, okay, what do you do once you have that information? 2/3 of the households in America have no other choice as to where they're going to get their internet. So this is, to go out and claim that somehow this is some kind of consumer protection is a fraudulent representation.
They say their proposal is more fair, more pro-consumer. What makes you think it's actually the opposite?
Well, I mean, in the name of consumer protection, they say they're not going to protect consumers. In the name of better regulation, they say they're going to turn it over to the FTC, but yet an FTC commissioner, Commissioner McSweeney, this afternoon tweeted that even if they do that, the FTC doesn't have any authority. They're just running away from their responsibilities.
Okay, so what do you think so far?
So far, I think Mr. Wheeler is spot on and correct. And, you know, I also heard an interview with Pai earlier. It was a 30-minute interview that he had with Reason, I think. And it was one of those situations where, yeah, he's talking about, well, you know, the FTC is going to be there to handle complaints, and, you know, there hasn't been any issues before we put this you know, regulation in place. I guess what he doesn't remember is, you know, the whole scandal with Comcast and the BitTorrent situation, you know, where they were slowing and throttling traffic. There's been many instances, and then all of a sudden they said no and no and no, and finally came out and said yes. And Mr. Wheeler is 100% correct when it comes to competition. It's not like a cell phone provider where we have today, where, you know, we live in an area where we have 3 or 4 different providers where we don't like what we're doing, say with T-Mobile, for example. We could switch to Verizon, or we could switch to AT&T, or switch to somebody else, right? But if you live in an area of the country where, say, for example, the local telephone company had decided, you know, they don't want to invest in their copper anymore, and the only other option for usable high-speed internet is Comcast, you have no competition. You can't go anywhere else.
Yep. That's how it is now.
And now basically what he's doing is going to hand the keys to these companies where, you know, you look at a nationwide map, you know, Comcast has carved off their area of the country. Spectrum has carved off their area of the country.
So my thoughts on this are really, they're fractured across a whole spectrum. So I want to start with one of my go-tos in situations like this is go to history. And what have we done historically? If you look at The Master Switch by Tim Wu, if you've read that book, you know where this is going. Unfortunately, you already know where this is going. And you have to look back at companies that, look at industries, actually. Look at industries like the power utility industry and water, and how fundamental those are, and the phone lines. And if you think the internet is more equivalent to power, phone, and water than it is your cable TV service, then I think you probably fall on the line. You fall in the line of they should be considered common carrier. It should be common carrier status, i.e. the FCC should regulate it. If you feel like the internet is more like cable television or your wireless provider, then you probably fall on the side that the FTC should be governing it and regulating it. And my mind on this is fractured because I don't want the FCC having any involvement with the content that Jupiter Broadcasting produces. We're getting dive bombed, Chase.
Yep, they already heard us.
But at the same time, this will undoubtedly negatively impact Jupiter Broadcasting, without question. And if this was 5 years in the future, I bet we wouldn't be able to launch a network with video. In fact, I'm really worried about Scale Engine. I'm really worried. What does this mean for Scale Engine? How are they going to be able to survive in a world where net neutrality means that on the back end, really large content providers are all linking up business deals to give each other priority access? How is a company like Scale Engine going to survive, or Jupiter Broadcasting? I don't really see it. Jupiter Broadcasting will make it because we'll have to ride on the backs of your silo services like YouTube and Stitcher and Google Play.
Yeah, but you got to realize, Chris, if you want to upload to those services, you'll probably have to pay more.
Well, and I also will have to follow their content guidelines, and I'll have to make sure that I'm within their realm of what they consider appropriate speech. There's going to be all kinds of restrictions that would be placed on a show like Unfilter. So I'm absolutely against the FCC and more regulation because it generally leads to a worse situation. But at the same time,
And by the way, this isn't more regulation. This is less regulation.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's existing regulation.
Right.
It's a regulation that's existed since 2015.
Right.
But at the same time, I acknowledge that we live in a reality where monopolies control these networks. They generally have their own agendas, like maybe a TV service. Comcast owns NBC as an example. And so they have a secondary agenda. And the primary one is not the internet. And fundamentally, the internet represents a sharing of knowledge, human knowledge, and connectivity. And it fundamentally normalizes knowledge. It gives access to communications and knowledge to everyone that can get a TCP/IP connection to the internet. And that is a bigger deal than Comcast profits or anybody else's slicing up of the internet. The bigger picture here is human knowledge, because the internet is the one fundamental fucking plane leveler that comes in and levels everybody on the same plane. I can have the same presence that Leo Laporte and CNN have on YouTube. People can choose which one they prefer. And I don't have to worry that I have to be on some sort of baby internet where everything's slower and it costs against your minutes. I don't have to worry about that right now. And once that is a reality, then the companies like the major networks that have full access to these networks will be the ones that unquestionably pull ahead. And it will limit our available spectrum of information. And that, in the scope of humanity, is a goddamn travesty.
So there's a couple things. First, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here for a moment. And I before 2015, before these net neutrality rules were put into position, we didn't really have a tiered situation. We for consumers.
Can I pause?
Yeah.
Because you're right. One thing I do want to make clear is I understand that net neutrality, in a sense, is a reaction to something that hasn't happened yet, that could happen. And generally, to regulate preemptively before something has happened is not a good idea, and I'm almost always against that.
Right. And so now we've seen the clever marketing taglines from Comcast on Twitter and other major companies saying, we will treat all traffic the same. We believe in an open internet. Blah 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 blah. We've seen them. We've seen the sponsored tweets.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be like that for a good year or two.
Right. So it's one of those situations where, no doubt, if this does happen in December, if this is something that you truly believe in. Now, this is something that I believed in. I actually wrote my representatives. Now, my representatives in my state are left-leaning. They're Democrats. So it's one of those things where I didn't have to really pull hairs to convince them that this is an idea that they should believe in. But I did it anyway. And the reason why I did it anyway is one of those things, hey, you support, or in the inverse, you try to convince somebody. But when this happens in December, okay, there's something that's happening next year. It's called, the midterm elections. in the United States where, a lot of seats will be in play both in the House and Senate. And this is where, you put your money where your mouth is, and you get out there and you vote, and you make a difference. And a lot of people are going to say, well, it doesn't matter what I do. It's already against me.
No, it's not that. It's just that's what people always say. And
I
yet
know.
Here we are.
We're here because people don't vote.
But we've always been saying, go out and vote. If you don't like it, go out and vote, and nothing changes.
Or get involved and do something.
So,
because right now,
let me ask you this: should we instead, as a community, come together and find a technological way around this? Some sort of P2P system, something that uses WebRTC, something that uses BitTorrent, something that uses Tor, something that gets around this shit. Because at the end of the day, we're working with an IP network here. There's got to be a way around this.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, as soon as you sign up for that internet service, you're agreeing to terms in a contract.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So you can't.
They'll get you on violation.
They'll get you on that. The way around this is creating your own ISP. Getting your own local municipality. And I know there's a lot of protectionist laws in place. You get those overturned.
So, okay,
because if he talks about free market and he talks about, hey, let the market do the thing, well, let the market happen.
All right, dude, well, let me devil's advocate your ass here for a second.
Fair enough.
So net neutrality regulation was passed in response to nothing that actually had really happened yet. In fact, if you want to talk about something egregious, it's damn fucking T-Mobile with their freeloading where you can watch YouTube and Google Play for free and doesn't count against your minutes. That is actually more insidious than anything else because consumers love that shit. Oh man, I have a 10 gig cap, but I can watch YouTube unlimited.
Well, YouTube has also said. Or not YouTube, sorry.
It's Netflix. It's anything that the guy in the leather jacket decides.
T-Mobile has said they are not going to restrict anybody from signing for any company to sign up for that service to do that.
Are you seriously? You don't see how this?
No, but I'm just saying that's what they said.
This is exactly the problem, though. They are tiering the internet. GeekGamer.tv is not on that list.
No.
So if I am a T-Mobile subscriber, it is free for me to watch Netflix and YouTube, and I implicitly pay out my ass to watch Geek Gamer. You're comfortable with that?
No, I'm not. But But what I'm saying though is, what I'm saying here is, first off, T-Mobile has said any provider can jump on board.
But really, do you think you and I could? Do you think we could legitimately? Do you think Jupiter Broadcasting or Geek Gamer TV could go?
Have we tried?
No way. I don't even know how you would do that.
Oh, I don't know either.
See, the problem is it's like free speech. It's like the internet should be this common playing field, and it's your merits that get you the traffic, not the tiering agreement that you have.
Right.
Because the thing is the tiering agreement stuff is artificial. If you just go by what the technology fundamentally enables, this tiered, structured fast lane shit is an artificial quality of service style limitation that we are creating. So I am really, just from a technology standpoint, I'm kind of against it. But I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a moment here, because I do totally see the other side here. And it's not necessarily the innovation argument, because I feel like innovation in wired ISP services in the United States has died years ago, net neutrality or not. And that's not even a debate. That's just the reality. Look at the BIOS disaster here in Washington as an example, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the argument, Chase, that I think that is really difficult to disagree with if you look at it rationally. Net neutrality was a response to something that hadn't happened. There was no boogeyman. There was no tiered speed lanes.
There are one-off situations that have happened that people caught Comcast and other companies on.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
There were a couple, but those may have been resolved without the FCC stepping in and creating the net neutrality regulations. They could have been resolved through other means, public pressure, etc. And so we are all in without much questioning on the FCC, the people who have, I think, set back American television a decade over Janet Jackson's nipple. They're going to be in charge of the internet now because of something that didn't actually happen yet, because of something that might happen.
Well, and now they won't be. They're going to wash their hands of it.
And go to the FTC. Now, the only thing that seems to be missing here is the FTC's ability to actually enforce anything. If they were given the power to make some kind of enforcement, would that not perhaps be the better body to manage this situation?
Well,
essentially, let the ISPs attempt to innovate with like the T-Mobile stuff that you're apparently a fan of.
No, I
know, I'm just kidding.
I'm just counter argument.
I know you were. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah.
But but let ISPs attempt to innovate there, and then when they go too far, the FTC steps in and says, "Hey, fuck you, stop that."
Right. Unfortunately, yeah, the FTC, like you said, they've already come out and said they don't have any teeth.
That has to be the thing that changes.
Right. And the other thing, though, is the reasoning behind him doing this. You know, he's saying,
yeah.
There's been no innovation, which is very shady. The pure ignorance of all the positive comments, all the overwhelming comments of people, fellow Americans on both sides of the aisles who want to keep things the way they are. Because here's one of the inherent issues, right? If you have a company that, say, doesn't like what Jupiter Broadcasting is putting out because of the opinions, say, on Linux, for example, saying, no, I don't like that distro. We're going to throttle. We're going to turn the faucet down a little bit. You have no recourse, none,
right, especially a small business,
right?
And here's the bigger picture item, though. So, like, take our businesses out of it. If you have a country where they don't have this, so let's go down the possibility road here. Let's go like a few years down the road where things are a little more cut up, a little more tiered. It's a little more cableized. How is that not going to stagnate innovation in the U.S.? And countries that don't have this tiered system where everybody just gets a great fast pipe, they're going to be way ahead of us.
Ironically, you look at the companies, the countries that have tiered the internet, and someone posted a link in the chat room for New Zealand. Those companies, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, where do those companies innovate from? Here.
Right, but that's not going to be the case.
That won't happen anymore.
If you're a little small startup.
And those companies were able to innovate and start up and grow without any restrictions on the internet.
Right.
Now with there being restrictions.
This is my point.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say is we will not only fall behind in the innovation curve, we will be last. We'll be in the back of the pack.
We will entrench these duopolies and monopolies that we have, and the little guys that are the new innovators, the ones that are actually creating jobs, the ones that are in this IP economy. The only thing, IP and weed are like and natural resources are what the U.S. makes now. And if we're going to shut down the IP industry, well, then they better start legalizing pot everywhere.
So then the potential spin on this is, we have seen, for example, Google. We've seen Microsoft.
You won't see another one.
Well, no, hold on.
They're going to own it for the next decade.
Hold on, let me finish my thought.
I'm fired up, ready to go.
I know you are. We see Google, for example, rolling out their fiber in certain areas. We see Microsoft, for example, using a white space signal down in Puerto Rico to spread broadband and that sort of thing. Just to play a little twist on this, if you start seeing companies doing the tiered thing, you're going to see more local municipality ISPs pop up because those laws are being struck down left and right already.
Maybe. Here's the insidious thing, Chase, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
And then maybe Google will say, we're going to have our fiber, and it's going to be 100% open.
Maybe. And it'll be available for a limited market, and then every single thing, everything you beat off to, everything you read about, every social post you ever post will be sucked up by Google. Isn't that a wonderful future? Now, here's the other thing about this, is it's going to be more insidious. It's going to be slow and steady. It's going to happen while we're all distracted. We'll be talking about something else completely unrelated, and all of a sudden, in the background, the main core networks will start charging another $1 a month for each consumer that Netflix uses. And they're going to go to Amazon and say, we need another $1. It's just $1. It's not a big deal. Of course, when you times it, across 300 million, all of a sudden, it's quite a big deal. And that's where it's going to start. It's going to start there. And those companies, they're big enough that they can afford it. So they're going to absorb that cost because it's going to give them a business advantage. Yeah. Because it's going to be a business proposition that they can't ignore. And they're going to get an advantage. And it's going to all happen behind closed doors. There's not going to be an article on The Verge. There's not going to be some...
If you can even get to it.
It's going to be something that just happens while we're all talking about fucking Justin Bieber. And the thing is that's going to go on for years. And then it won't be until all of that has happened that they come for us. And at that point, we'll have no option because more of these duopolies and monopolies will be in place. There'll be less choice. And the wireless networks are already this way. My home connection is an AT&T MiFi or a T-Mobile MiFi or a Sprint MiFi, depending on the day, because they all have different limitations or they all have different throttles, and I jump around and I look for public Wi-Fi constantly, and I'm already living the net neutrality future because I'm living on wireless at home.
So what do we do to change it? I mean, what do we do now? I mean, because obviously Reddit's mobilized, other people are mobilized, but
some sort of
it's
mesh
too late.
peer-to-peer networking that is an encrypted protocol that they can't break apart, they can't determine what it is.
It's got to plug in somewhere.
Yeah.
It's got to plug in somewhere, and unfortunately, unless you're your own local ISP, you're going to be plugging into Comcast, you're going to be plugging into Verizon, you're going to be plugging in somewhere.
Well, and won't it be interesting if maybe 5-10 years from now that entrepreneurs that want to start a business on the internet go somewhere else?Maybe they go to Canada, maybe they go to the UK, maybe they go to Russia. I don't. Could you
Sweden,
imagine
Germany, whatever?
Could you imagine if that's what has to happen? Is if Google 2.0 or Facebook 2.0 can't launch in the U.S. because of this, or the next media company?
I mean, I will say this: I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong that where if this goes through and it happens, and after all the court battles, this happens and sticks, that I hope I'm wrong. That things are okay, and because we haven't seen the tiered situation happen here in the United States yet.
You know what? I'll put it this way.
But whoever's first, oh my God, they're going to get hit.
I might be wrong, but if you want to argue with us, I encourage you first, please read The Master Switch, The Rise and Fall of Information Empires. It analyzes strategic maneuvers of today's great information powers and kind of compares them to all of the major industries that have come in the past. Radio, television, cable TV, the telegram. There is a historical commonality through all of them. Tim Wu's The Master Switch, I'll put a link in the show notes. You should really read this book or listen to this book first, then come back to the net neutrality debate, because it's the thing that really changed my mind on this whole thing. I normally would be against the FCC having anything to do with the internet, except for the fundamental fact that common carrier status is the only thing that will prevent the Tim Wu future. And on December 14th, we're shooting that in the head.
One of the things that bothered me even today, even with bandwidth caps and that sort of thing that Comcast is doing right now and some other main ISPs, is the meter, is the bit meter that isn't regulated. They're the ones saying, well, this is what you've used. But, you have no appeals process, an official appeals process. I've seen many articles where, you have people monitoring their own internet usage and they haven't used as much as they have. These are the kind of things when you have the internet that is basically a utility now, where it is a vital piece of your
commerce, of people's information,
right,
health information,
when you
communication.
When you move somewhere, when you move, say, into a house or an apartment, you look for power, you look for water and garbage, and then you look for internet because it's a needed, required thing in your living. And, this is one of those situations where don't just sign a petition. Don't just contact. You got to stay and be engaged.
Don't just upvote or like a post.
Yeah. I'm lucky where I live. I live in a state and a place where they believe in this kind of net neutrality thing and they want it to happen. Actually, Washington State was one of the states that wanted to create their own privacy protections once the FCC ditched those. Remember that a few months ago?
Mm-hmm.
So if you live in a state that is against the norm, instead of getting that form response and going and throwing your hands up in the air and going, whatever, that's when you get a group of people together and you go visit your representative's office. There's things that people can do that people choose not to do because either they're lazy or there's no time or whatever.
I just completely 100% agree with you. I'm also a realist, and I'm like,
I know,
man, if we weren't gonna do that over the situation in Syria or Yemen or droning American citizens, or the war on drugs, we're not gonna do it over net neutrality. It's just gonna not fucking happen.
Yeah.
And so I look at it from a perspective like, well, now what do we do? Those of us that realize that this ship has sailed, what do we do now? And that's the conversation I'm curious to know what the audience has to say, because what can we do now?
Well,
is there some mesh network we could set up? Is there some other route we could take?
Here's the thing. Here's the thing,
What's
Chris.
the thing?
What's the thing? There's no law that has been set yet in either direction, okay? All the FCC is looking to do is pull back on this regulation, okay? It's not law, okay? This was not a Congress thing. This is not where they decided, okay, we're going to do this. Okay?
Yep.
You need to go to your representatives and say, let's get together, both sides, cross the aisles, hold hands, touch each other, whatever you want to do.
I'm sorry, what?
Hold each other.
Al Franken?
Al Franken. And let's create a law. Okay, let's do this. Let's, make it bipartisan, do something, okay? Because here's the thing. Here's the thing.
There's multiple?
Well, there's elections that happen, and guess what could happen in 3 years? You could have a Democrat back there in the White House, and guess what? Things get flipped back the other way, and we'll just go this back and forth all day long. We need to come to the middle, make something happen.
And that, people, is what grinds my gears. Tom?
No, it's Chris. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's our position on it after a considerable amount of deliberation. I mean, we've been talking about this since like episode 80.
Yeah. This is one of those things that obviously after the regulations kicked in 2015, we felt things were fine. We did, of course, had reservations.
Yep,
if
still do.
With Hillary even winning, because she wasn't too solid on the whole net neutrality thing.
I'm not even solid on it. I'm not even sure.
So it's one of those situations where once it starts affecting companies' bottom lines, and it could be a Google bottom line or a Netflix bottom line. I'm serious. It's one of those situations where people will start voting with their pocketbooks, and I think that's when you'll start to see change.
I think you could be right. So when we're talking about cyber, and we have been for
ASL,
this has been a long cyber segment.
Yes, but important one.
Yeah. So let's when you talk about cyber, you got to talk about Russia. 1 and 2. It's like peanut
butter
and
yes,
peanut butter and chocolate.
APK is being sideloaded.
Yeah. Right. Good callback.
Yeah, man.
So this one's good, I think, but it represents a huge power shift, and you got to figure this has been in the works for a while. We haven't really talked a lot about the situation in Syria, and the U.S. has been dialing down their involvement with the counterinsurgency, and they've been sort of working with their partner Saudi Arabia to sort of wind down the whole counterterrorism going up against Assad plan. They've just sort of been dialing it back since Trump got into office. And Putin has been stepping up his influence and his involvement with Syria and managing the entire situation. And it has resulted in some major shifts. So let's start with the first major story out of Syria.
Well, President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke by phone for more than an hour yesterday. The two talked about the situation in North Korea, as well as the road ahead for Syria. And here's what Putin had to say after meeting with the Syrian president on Monday. A lot has been done to stabilize the situation in Syria, and I hope that in the near future, we will put a final full stop in the fight against terrorism in Syria.
So Putin not only called Trump, but he called Iran, he called China, he called Saudi Arabia, he called Turkey.
He's trying to take the high road.
He's trying to take control of the situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And he argues that this is a good deal for everyone, and also a deal with Iran between the U.S. is a good thing for everyone.
Good evening, friends. We start tonight with a crucial phone call between Presidents Trump and Putin about the future of Syria. The call comes after an unexpected meeting between the Russian president and Syria's Bashar al-Assad in Sochi. The two discussed the future of Syria as countries in the region acknowledge the demise of the Islamic State. Manila Chan has been following the story. She's here tonight to tell us more about what the presidents discussed. Manila?
That's right, Ed. Syria was the major issue at hand when President Putin briefed President Trump on his meeting with the Syrian leader. Putin and Bashar al-Assad met in Sochi yesterday where...
So they don't really draw attention to this, but it's pretty rare for Assad to leave Syria. And this was one of those moments where he came to Putin.
The pair discussed constitutional amendments in Syria, which will include holding new presidential and parliamentary elections as part of the transitional process in an effort to bring peace to the war-torn country. In a rare trip outside of Syria, Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin discussed winding down Russia's military involvement, which would mark a major turning point in the 6-year-long war.
So it's a point that they emphasized in a press conference, that Russia was winding down its involvement in Syria. And it's Putin arranging a power meeting between China, Iran, Turkey, and a bunch of others to all come to an agreement about what's going on, how to wind down the Syria situation. And he's essentially calling the shots. Here's another clip on it.
Ahead of a crucial few days for Syria, Vladimir Putin put on a last-minute show of political stage management. A surprise visit by Bashar al-Assad to Russia and a meeting with the military top brass who prevented his government from collapse.
This is them winning.
Yeah.
This is the failure of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's policy to topple Assad. This is the failure of that policy to arm the rebels, to give them weapons, to give them communications, to give them money, and to give them Toyotas.
White ones.
This is what this is. This is the end of this.
Yeah.
And in this fumbling of the situation in Syria, we have given the power, that we have tipped the power of control in the Middle East to Russia. And part of me says, have at it. You want to be the major power influencer in the Middle East that is the police, that runs the policing for the Middle East? Have at it. Go kill your own Go kill Russians for the Middle East. Let's bring our U.S. troops home. That's what Chris says. But then part of me goes, well, then what the hell did we just waste all of this blood and treasure for years? What have we been doing for years just to blow this thing and then let Putin get control of the Middle East? Like, we didn't just misstep this. We fucking blew everything since 9/11. This is the tipping point. It'll spread everywhere from here.
Some are saying, I mean, I'm just saying some, not in our chat room or anything, but some will tell you, Chris, this is just because, Putin's relationship with Trump, and Trump's saying, all right, go ahead, let him do this, go ahead.
Part of me thinks it would be the best gift that Donald Trump ever gave to the people of America. He probably can't do much more. He's not going to fix health care. He's not going to fix taxes. But if he could wind down our involvement in the Middle East simply because he made us less relevant there, that would actually, totality, it would be a good thing for the United States.
Not only it would save lives in Syria, it would save American soldier lives as well. I mean, it's one of those situations where just stop it already.
Well, and it would save a huge waste of money. It would save money that has been
huge. But the military-industrial complex, Chris, they'll find somewhere else to put the money.
Yeah, I think that is actually true. I think that is the reality of it.
That's how it works. We wind down somewhere else, so we gear up somewhere else.
Well, you always got cyber. I suppose.
The great cyber war.
I do think the interesting thing about this is, just to recap on this point.
Russia, Iran and Turkey have forged what some would say is a curiously durable partnership. They support different sides in Syria and have different goals, but every couple of months for nearly a year now, the three have co-sponsored talks with Syria's government and opposition forces in the Kazakh capital Astana.
Do you know who's sponsoring the opposition forces? Saudi Arabia. They're just full on,
With our weapons that we sold off Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, we'll get back to Saudi Arabia here when we get to Yemen in a moment. But this is clearly a galvanizing moment for Turkey, Iran, and Russia. And we have just created ourselves a great little holy trinity of competitors there by getting involved in this situation. And to what end? Assad is still in power. They claim they've added amendments to their constitution to create a political process.
Yep.
But Assad is still in power. He'll do an easy transition. He's essentially won the war. We are spinning down our support for all of the psychopaths that we hired to kill people. And Russia walks away the big victor.
Yep. Good PR victory as well. I mean, it's all the way around for him.
Hoorah, dude. Hoorah. Hoorah. So let's keep talking about Russia and Trump, because there's been one person in the news this week over and over again when it comes to the Mueller investigation.
When Jared Kushner was just 25 years old, he bought a newspaper in New York City for about $10 million. A friend said the New York Observer was Kushner's graduation present from his father. You can see him handing out copies of the first edition published on his watch.
How young he looks.
Now that paper is getting tied up in the Russia controversy.
So that's just a little background on Jared Kushner. Apparently, just in case you didn't know, he ran a paper. And the Mueller investigation keeps honing in on Jared Kushner. He's been in the news a lot this week.
A new report that the Mueller investigation is digging deeper into Jared Kushner's contacts with foreign leaders during the transition. According to the Wall Street Journal, the latest instance involves the December 2016 UN resolution that condemned Israel for building settlements in disputed territories.
Did she mispronounce Russia there?
Did she?
Because it sounded like she said Israel. Didn't it? I think she mispronounced Russia, because I could have sworn she said Israel.
December 2016 UN resolution that condemned Israel.
Oh, she said Israel.
She said her, okay.
For building settlements in disputed territories. Then President-elect Trump opposed the resolution, posting it to Facebook that it should be vetoed. The resolution was adopted the very next day after the Obama administration refused to block it. People briefed on the matter tell the Wall Street Journal that Israeli officials then began reaching out to senior transition officials, including Kushner. Now Mueller's investigators want to know what role Kushner may have played in any talks. Officials are already looking into the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting that Kushner attended with a Kremlin lawyer.
Now, there's actually no association between the Israeli influence in the transition team and the Russian meeting, but they just kind of go right into it to kind of like conflate the two, I guess.
And a December 2016 meeting with the head of a Russian state-owned bank that was sanctioned by the U.S. Then there are the two other meetings he disclosed with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Kushner has also had an issue disclosing foreign contacts on his federal disclosure forms. He's had to update the list 3 separate times, adding more than 100 people who had previously been left off.
So there's a funny thing in the dossier. It says, by the way, that Jared Kushner is a cuck, and that yeah, he likes to watch guys. Anyways, here's the problem. There's a real sort of slippery slope here for the left media and for the Democrats, and that is that it was Kushner's responsibility in the campaign to interface with all of these different points of interest, like the Israeli government, the Canadian government, Saudi Arabia, Russia. That was actually like his point. And they're going to get into that in the interview here. But the problem is if you start looking into Russian influence, then should you also be looking into Israeli influence? And if you go down that path, then should you be looking into Israeli influence for all politicians? Because that is a rabbit hole that goes very deep.
Peter Baker, let's talk first about the Israeli contacts and meetings. Why would Bob Mueller be investigating that? Would that be illegal if he was reaching out to the Israelis and trying to influence a UN vote?
And if you think about all of the conversations around Russia recently, if you replace the word Russia with Israel, and if you replace the word Putin with Netanyahu, does it change the way you feel about them working together? If Israeli government lawyers had been emailing Jared Kushner about dirt on Hillary, does that change how you feel about this? And why is that?
Well, there is the Logan Act from the 18th century that prevents American citizens who are not in office from trying to undermine and affect the position of their government. It's never been prosecuted successfully, certainly not in modern times, and it's sort of held out there from time to time when somebody does
Chris,
something.
is that a law that was put into place before anything happened?
Yeah, maybe. No, actually, the Logan Act was in response to somebody setting up a behind-the-scenes deal with the French government.
Oh, okay, but since it was put into place,
It is counter to the administration. It's hard for me to imagine that that's what Bob Mueller is looking into, but it's possible.
That's why I asked. I can't imagine either, because I don't think the Obama administration was really excited about the possibility of Israel being whacked at the UN at the end of the year. I would think it had a lot more to do with maybe perhaps the Russian banking meetings during the transition and some of the other things.
Yeah, we knew at the time, by the way, that there were contacts between Netanyahu's government and the Trump camp during that debate at the UN. That was reported at the time.
So we knew that so I guess at the time we knew that they were colluding with the Israeli government, and we're okay with that.
Okay.
Wouldn't the Logan Act apply equally to the Israeli government or the Russian government? It's the Logan Act.
But if they apply that, they're going to have to apply it now every single time. I see. You don't want to do that.
So it's political.
Yeah, totally.
One thought may be that he's told the Mueller people, presumably, that his contacts with Kislyak and the other Russians was part of his role in the campaign and the transition. He met with other foreign officials. Maybe they're looking to back that up to see whether that checks out. Was, in fact, Jared Kushner, an envoy to all sorts of foreign officials, or was there something unusual about the amount of contact he had with Russians?
So to clear up what he just mumbled through there is what the Mueller investigation is supposedly doing is going through all of his his contacts that he had as part of his role in the campaign and deciding which ones could be appropriate and which ones couldn't be appropriate. I don't know by which standard they judge that, but that's apparently what could be happening now.
Carol Lee, Mueller's also looking at the angle of Jared Kushner playing a role in Comey and the firing of Comey.
Yeah.
Seems like there's an awful lot of attention focused in recent reports on Jared Kushner, and you just wonder whether other people in the White House are pointing fingers at him either because he was at the center of all of this or because he has quite a few enemies in the White House.
So I think it could be maybe the latter. I'm no fan of Jared Kushner, but I would view him, if I was somebody that had been in D.C. for 40 years, as some punk son of a bitch who's an outsider. He's a total political noob. He has no idea what he's in for, and he's a foreign object that must be ejected from the body.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And nobody likes Jared, apparently. And he has, you agree, he's been in the news a lot this last week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nobody likes Jared.
Nobody wants to go to Jared anymore.
And we have new details about other family meetings with Russians. You ready for this one?
CBS News has learned special counsel Robert Mueller will soon interview top-level White House officials as part of his investigation into Russian interference in the U.S. election. Jeff Pegues, meanwhile, has new details about members of the Trump family who met with Russians during the campaign.
Now, let's all listen very carefully to this report because they conflate a few things.
Alexander Torshin is a Kremlin insider. As the deputy head of Russia's central bank, he has ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin and reportedly has links to organized crime.
I think pretty much everybody in the high level of the government does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why his meeting in May 2016 with Donald Trump Jr. during the height of the presidential campaign has gotten the attention of congressional investigators. The two men were introduced during a dinner at a National Rifle Association conference in Louisville, Kentucky.
All right, so you take a fact that they met each other. Picture it, Sicily, 1983. You're at a dinner. This guy comes over and says, hey, how you doing, Junior? How you doing, man? Good luck. Your dad's doing it. He's killing it. Your dad's brilliant. He's just doing great. Keep at it. And then you sit down and you keep eating your steak, all right? So this is what happens. But the media is able to take this moment, just like they have with Jeff Sessions, and we can make any story we want.
According to a source, Trump Jr. and Torshin discussed a mutual interest in firearms.
I can tell you as somebody who's grown up around gun advocates and gun lovers, that's exactly what happens. And for those of you who are not big into guns, you're just sort of either way, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
The source did not recall if the campaign ever came up. In a statement, Alan Futerfast, the attorney representing the president's son, said they made small talk for a few minutes and went back to their separate meals.
Well, that's not good enough. We need something more dramatic. We need to bring in like an expert. We need to give some sort of story to this.
Maybe a foreign official?
Is a former assistant director of the FBI.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that'll do.
Fair. Well, I'll take shared credit on it.
Okay.
And says meetings like this are typical of intelligence operations.
You could also say meetings like this are typical of people who like guns. Meetings like this are typical of people who want Donald Trump to win. Meetings like this are typical of people who share conservative values. Meetings like this are typical of people who have children. Meetings like this you get my point.
Part of getting close to someone is I give you opportunities, but I don't make you uncomfortable.
Well, that's a narrative I can run with. Oh, so he's working, Junior.
And I don't have you push me away.
Torshin had made overtures to the Trump campaign before. Through an intermediary, a request for a meeting with candidate Trump made its way to top campaign officials, including Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Sources say Kushner recommended against the meeting. But less than 3 weeks after the NRA event, both Donald Trump Jr. and Kushner met at Trump Tower with a Russian lawyer with ties to the Kremlin.
You see, again, not related at all. So they end with Kushner recommended against the meeting, and then they just sort of move right into this lawyer meeting as if the two things are related, but they're not related. They conflate the stories.
But less than 3 weeks after the NRA event, both Donald Trump Jr. and Kushner met at Trump Tower.
It has nothing to do with the NRA event.
Nothing.
And that's intentional storytelling right there.
Yeah.
You don't accidentally write it this way. You don't accidentally get all of the art assets. You don't accidentally have your very well-paid news actor voice over that. These things don't just accidentally happen.
With a Russian lawyer with ties to the Kremlin. Trump Jr. had been promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. That meeting is now a key focus in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian meddling in the election.
It's just interesting how they do that. And so they're able to maintain a narrative and a story, and they're able to imply momentum where there is none.
Mm-hmm.
As if these things are new developments when they're the same development that we had a couple of weeks ago, if not a month ago. And that's really obnoxious, too. And then there's one more story that I really kind of want to get your take on. This keeps coming up in the news for about 3 weeks now, and we got to figure out what this is. What are they trying to message here?
The top U.S. nuclear commander says he would refuse nuclear strike orders from President Trump if those orders were illegal. General John Hyten says his first obligation is to follow the law, despite what any commander-in-chief tells him to do. Watch.
Now, we played that last week.
Yeah.
And like this is a thing that keeps coming up. Trump is such a blowhard that he's going to blow up at somebody. He's going to launch the nukes.
Yeah, but and I don't know how much of the clip that you have, but the general actually had conversations with Trump, and Trump was talking about it, and he's like, well, if it's an illegal order, we got to make sure it's
so here
legal.
It is. Yeah. So here's the clip.
Yeah.
So, but go from I'll resist. So the guys, the script was the general will resist an illegal order from Trump. And here's what the general actually said.
Yeah.
I provide advice to the president. He'll tell me what to do, and if it's illegal, guess what's going to happen?
You say no.
I'm going to say, Mr. President, that's illegal. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to say, what would be legal? And we'll come up with options of a mix of capabilities to respond to whatever the situation is, and that's the way it works.
That's all he's really saying.
Yeah,
that's not majorly controversial.
No, there was a huge spin on this, and we talked about it on the show.
It's not that complicated.
That, yes. Ultimately, yes, the president can make it happen if he really is fully determined to do it.
So why does this story keep coming up?
Because it fits the narrative. It fills the news cycle. It's one of those story, non-story situations, and this is a non-story situation. It's pretty cut and dry when it comes to military code and conduct on this.
It's always been that way.
It's always been that way. The only reason why it's even coming up to the froth, if you will, the froth level.
Is it to build it's like to build this narrative around Trump that he's incompetent?
Well, no. I think the narrative got boosted just based on the fact that he's talked a lot about North Korea and talked about fire and fury and those kind of comments. And there are some people that are honestly spooked by those comments. So maybe part of it is the spinning of the story is to remind those people that, hey, calm down, nothing's going to happen, because of those specific procedures in place. So I think sometimes it's a little bit of reassurance that, people, calm down. There's checks and balances in play here.
So I think some people in the live stream had a hard time hearing the clips because they were mono. So sorry if you're listening live. I think that might have been the case. I apologize.
Oh, this is in stereo.
Yeah, we are.
No?
But the clip, that CNN clip, for whatever reason, was sorry about that.
That was in stereo too.
So let's shift over to some world news, and something that the patrons have requested this week is coverage about Yemen. And so I have a slightly dated clip, but it's a pretty good explanation and a summary of what the hell's going on in Yemen, why the situation is so bad, and it'll keep moving and get everybody up to speed. So let's go.
Now, you probably haven't heard what with all the important tweets to fact-check during Senate hearings, but guess what this week is? It's the second birthday of the war in Yemen. Happy birthday, guys. Don't forget to light your candles. Basically, two guys have been in charge of Yemen for 25 years. Saleh was president from 1990 to 2012, and he was replaced by Hadi, who was previously vice president from 1994 to 2012 and has been president ever since. And both have some very passionate supporters. And why wouldn't they rule forever? Those two have done such a bang-up job. Back before the war began, only 45% of the country was malnourished, and only 54% lived in poverty, with some cities enjoying the luxury of tap water once every 20 days. Lucky duckies. Of course, those two also have their detractors, as evidenced by Hadi's picture on Wikipedia. Anyway, after the Arab Spring in 2012, Hadi took over as part of a settlement. He was supposed to only hang around for 2 years, but then that became 3. And then in 2015, he decided to stick around a bit more. That's when Saleh supporters, who are largely a Shiite group known as the Houthis, tried to overthrow Hadi, who is a Sunni. And this made Yemen's neighbour Saudi Arabia very nervous because they're also Sunnis, and the last thing they want is to be surrounded by Shiites, especially with Iran taking an active interest in things. So Saudi Arabia started backing Hadi with lots of bombs. and off we go. But where does America fit into this? Well, under Obama alone, America sold Saudi Arabia $115 billion worth of weaponry. Not to mention, America provides most of Saudi Arabia's intelligence and all of their air refueling capacity. So Saudi Arabia simply couldn't fight without America's help. And this is where the problem lies. You see, these guys fight dirty, both sides. There have been over 10,000 civilian deaths from the war over the last 2 years, and that is not an accident. 101 schools and hospitals were bombed in 2015 alone, forcing Doctors Without Borders to leave the area. Furthermore, 80% of Yemen's food comes through the one port, a port that Saudi Arabia blockaded in 2015. And then it was bombed 9 times. And then the bridge that 90% of the country's food aid travels along was also repeatedly bombed. So now, what was already a hellhole has just received an upgrade. According to the aid agencies, you have 17 million people at emergency or crisis levels of food insecurity, including 7 million close to famine, with a Yemeni child dying every 10 minutes from severe malnutrition. And Oxfam estimate that 82% of the population need humanitarian assistance. And that was all facilitated by Barack Obama. Until the Saudis bombed a funeral procession late last year, and then Obama said, enough. No more arms sales to the Saudis. But then Donald Trump said, actually, let's try that again. And in the first week of March, America dropped more bombs in Yemen than they did in the whole of 2016. So here we go into another quagmire. But the good news is, with another 1,000 troops heading to Syria and the generals wanting to try another surge in Afghanistan, we're spoiled for choice when it comes to quagmires we can completely ignore. Happy birthday, Yemen.
So that was about 8 months ago, so now we need to come up to speed, but I thought that was pretty good. And this is the reason why I think a lot of the patrons wanted us to cover it this week, is because finally, for some reason, out of nowhere, 60 Minutes decided to actually talk about Yemen a little bit.
This month, Saudi Arabia tightened a stranglehold on the neighboring country of Yemen, and 7 million people face starvation. The Saudi blockade is an escalation in Yemen's civil war. The United Nations says that the war has now become a man-made catastrophe. You've seen very little of this because the Saudis prevent reporters from reaching the war zone.
Now that's their explanation. The reason why we haven't talked about it in the U.S. media is because Saudi Arabia doesn't let reporters go there, as if they can't use other sources. They're more than happy to quote Twitter when Donald Trump shits something out from the toilet, but when it's people reporting from Yemen, no, sorry, we can't talk about it until we go there ourselves. And so this is the excuse that they have used not to talk about the situation in Yemen. The reality is they're not talking about the situation in Yemen because the U.S. is a facilitator.
Recently, we were ordered off a ship headed to Yemen. Days later, the Saudis gave us permission to fly there, but after our equipment was loaded and our boarding passes issued, the Saudis closed the airspace so the plane couldn't take off. Even so, we have managed to get pictures out of Yemen to show you what the Saudi government does not want you to see.
You see, they could have done it all along. So when they decided to do it, they actually managed to get access to it. But there's some things that they overlooked in the report.
CBS's 60 Minutes is winning praise for the fact it finally covered the U.S.-Saudi war against Yemen, a total of 2 years and 8 months since the intervention began in March of 2015. There's just one tiny problem. As noted by The Intercept in the 13-minute segment,
I have a link to that in the show notes.
The program did not once mention that Saudi Arabia is a U.S. ally and that U.S. support is essential for the Saudi campaign to continue.
Yeah, in fact, we're their air support. We're their only air refueling support. And guess where they got all them weapons from?
So, how did journalists reporting for a U.S. audience manage to omit this fact?
Well, I wonder, how do you suppose that happened? Is
that a rhetorical question?
Yeah, right. So that's essentially the situation in Yemen. Is we're backing our buddies in Saudi Arabia. Now, you might say, Chris, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we backing Saudi Arabia when they're obviously in the wrong here? Well, I have some bacon.
I knew I saw some bacon on that turkey when I walked in.
That's
nice.
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I like to wrap it.
Fair enough. That's a lot of turkey.
So I got a lot of extra bacon. So here's my thought on this. This is being driven by a very delicate balance that we have. One of the ways that the U.S. ensures control over very powerful allies is we establish direct partnerships with their military. Training, financing, intelligence. We get real tight. We get real tight. We get real bro with their military because political offices and kingdoms come and go, but militaries are forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the military gets involved in something, we have to be there. We have to be their bros. We have to get their backs. Because if we ever need to pull the lever and we need to overthrow the government of Saudi Arabia, well, we need our buddies.
Boom.
And the buddies are the military. And this is something the military is taking on. And so we're backing our buddies. And because we've gotten everybody to stay silent for 2 years and 8 months, well, so far it's working out pretty well. It's only now finally, that CBS News focused on the children, on the starving children, the bony, starving children. Think of the children. Now we're talking about the problems in Yemen. And honestly, I guess that's just what it takes. I guess it just takes the children angle before the American public gives two shits. They don't care about people losing their homes. They don't care about a people's struggle for control of their government and their own sovereign rights. They don't care about foreign powers invading. They don't care about the U.S. government illegally making and enabling that invasion of Saudi. They don't care. They just don't care. But you show them a skinny kid, and all of a sudden we give two shits. And that's what CBS News did. So I got to give them credit for at least doing that. At least they did that. And we have the video in the supporters sync if you'd like to watch the entire 13-minute segment. But Chase, we have to keep moving on. It's becoming a huge show, and we have to give a little time to the pervert parade and the mess that's really going on in this congressional slush fund. Or actually, I should call it a shush fund.
It's a shush fund.
It's a shush fund,
yes.
And I think this is the bigger controversy. You got your Harvey Weinsteins, and you got but this is a real problem because you know what it's about, Mr. Chase?
What's that, Chris? Of course it is.
Well, the accusations against Senator Franken overshadow what could be an even bigger story. Congress has known about sexual misconduct and other kinds of misconduct by its members for years and has doled out your money, taxpayer cash, to keep it quiet. A group called the Office of Compliance has handed out more than $15 million to settle 260 alleged cases of sexual harassment, gender discrimination, and other wrongdoing by members of Congress.
15 mil. Jeez. Now, here's an example of how one of those plays out.
Michigan's John Conyers is admitting to a payoff of a former employee who says he fired her because she rejected his sexual advances. But he denies he did anything wrong. Correspondent Peter Ducey is on Capitol Hill.
Now, where'd that money come from? Of course, it came from that compliance committee. And the biggest name this week to get outed as a predator is Mr. Charlie Rose. Which
we've heard on the show many times.
Which we have played on the show a lot.
Say anything to those accusers, the people that's accusing you of all these wrongdoings?
It's not wrongdoings.
It's not wrongdoings is what he says. It's a little hard to hear. That's Charlie Rose on the street.
Less than 24 hours after a Washington Post article alleged Charlie Rose sexually harassed female employees for years.
What did I say when that article came out? What did I say, Chase?
There's going to be some people inside CBS that will say something.
And he's going to get fired.
Yep.
And it's whenever that happens, there's always more that come out. And that's exactly what's happened.
The 75-year-old is out of a job. In a statement, the president of CBS News announced Rose was fired, writing in part, "No one may be able to correct the past, but what may once have been accepted should not ever have been acceptable."
Charlie does not get a pass here.
This morning, Rose's CBS co-anchors spoke out with a mix of anger and sadness.
Let me be very clear. There is no excuse for this alleged behavior. It is systematic and pervasive. Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or in society until there is a reckoning and a taking of responsibility.
I'm really struggling because what do you say when someone that you deeply care about has done something that is so horrible?
There's been a lot of different reactions. So, of course, Al Franken was another one that came out recently. The one that really kind of was the most recent, of course, was Kevin Spacey. And then after Kevin Spacey came out, it was more and more and more names came out. Now it's like up to 20 people that have come out against Kevin Spacey. I think the same thing is going to happen to Charlie Rose. And it's in both cases, it feels like there's a lot behind the movement. Like Like it's like something that's been waiting to burst behind the scenes. And then all of these people come forward. And Gail and Nora, who I've been commenting about this for a few weeks in the overtime, and if you Google it, there's a lot of different speculation about it. But Gail and Nora have been like trying to have like a power fight for control of the show for a while now, since Charlie came back from his heart surgery. And this is an interesting development after that.
Gail, I know you and I have talked a lot about
Yes,
this,
we
and
have.
it takes a lot of courage for these women to come forward, and I think that they should continue to do something.
We hope that they will continue to speak up.
Yeah. I also want to say this, that this is a moment that demands a frank and honest assessment about where we stand and more generally the safety of women. Let me be very clear. There is no excuse for this alleged behavior. It is systematic and pervasive.
They're taking a pretty strong stand against their buddy here.
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
I think it's
necessary.
I don't think necessary is the right word. I think it's honesty and it's warranted.
To me, it feels like they've known, and
so?
and now they have to go to this far because they've known for a while,
and they're able to finally express it.
And I've been doing a lot of listening, and I'm going to continue to do that. This I know is true. Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or in society until there is a reckoning.
This is a very much of a written statement.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. It's so you compare the Kevin Spacey and the Charlie Rose to the Al Frankens, and there's a pretty big tone difference. Pulling a card from the old days of The Daily Show
then
here.
He took a picture,
Little montage.
which his office now says was a joke, that showed him potentially not actually groping, but mock groping her while she was asleep.
I don't doubt his remorse at all. And he admitted he did what he did. There was a picture of it, and he didn't remember the messy kiss, but...
This is them talking about Al Franken, and you know, if you go back, you can go search on YouTube 2006 Al Franken USO skit, and you can see the skit, and you can see that the woman is clearly uncomfortable with Al Franken in it. It's very awkward to watch, but you know,
he didn't
whatever.
remember the messy kiss, but whatever.
You know, whatever.
Which is, she said, he won. That was an explanation in and of itself, was basically that Al Franken was contrite. Donald Trump never has shown any contrition.
This is also like, let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about all of Trump's problems.
Well, that happens both ways. I mean, it's a classic deflection.
No, I know. Yeah, absolutely. This is a cut though to show just a comparison difference between Charlie Rose and say Al Franken, because what I think is there's, I'm not trying to defend Al Franken here, but I think there's a difference where when there's like people know behind the scenes that this shit's been going down for years.
Yeah, but it also,
and I think that's the case. Sorry,
Yeah.
just one more.
Yeah.
Finish it.
Yeah.
So I think with Charlie Rose and with Kevin Spacey and with Harvey Weinstein, there is like people that have known behind the scenes for decades, and so when they finally get exposed, everybody comes out, they fire him right away, and then you got guys like Al Franken who are just really kind of a prick. He was a pervy prick who was grabbing this girl's boobs when she passed out and doing some kisses, but that was the extent of it, right? It wasn't like systemic decades worth of using your power position to control women. It was more like him being a stupid fuck and just goofing around. And that's the difference, I think. And that's why there is a tone difference between how they talk about Franken versus how they talk about Charlie Rose.
I was going to add on to that too, and I think you hit a good point on that, because first off, I wouldn't want to lump the guy, and I'm not saying Franken here, but let's say, because the kissing thing is in dispute.
I don't just come on.
No, I'm saying he said and she said. They're disputing that fact. I'm not disputing the fact. I'm saying they dispute.
You go with her.
No. Let me finish here. And then the picture of the mock groping.
Him grabbing the boobs.
Right, and the grabbing the boobs thing. Compare that to a guy walking around naked in front of women,
or taking a shower and then walking out in front of them, or making them stick around and making them feel like they can't say anything because it's crucial to their career.
Both sides are crap. That's terrible.
Yeah,
but
it's a spectrum of abuse, though.
But there's a spectrum.
When you're abusing your position of power, it's a whole other psychological level of abuse.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And it's one of those situations where I think each individual case needs to be measured on its own situation.
Now that said, I still kind of feel
I'm
like
not saying that.
I feel like Franken crossed the line still.
Oh, he definitely did cross the line for sure, for sure. But to what end? To the point of.
Well, all of these are pretty far in the past too. You know,
right.
I don't know. I guess to me it seems like there should be some kind of investigation.
I mean, I think he said he welcomes any kind of ethics
Yeah,
investigation. Of course he does. But it's like to what end, right?
Yeah, how many more investigations do we need?
Well, how many more investigations do we need? What would satisfy people involved here? Like Charlie Rose, CBS, they make a decision, he's gone, right? Kevin Spacey's fired from his stuff. Louis C.K. fired from his stuff. A lot of these things are way past the years of statute of limitations, so there's no criminal penalty. There's nothing you can do there.
It's the court of public opinion,
the court of a public opinion.
And all of these people are being tried in it, and it is fascinating to watch
and it's
this.
swift.
Have you watched The Orville recently?
I'm only the first couple episodes.
Okay. Well, there's an episode in The Orville where it's like public opinion. It's like everybody has a Reddit, essentially. Anyways,
yeah.
It's very much the court of public opinion. People have to go on apology tours. Charlie Rose is done. He's 75 years old.
Oh, yeah. You will not see him on television again.
They should put Breiwei in his spot.
CBS goes grabs him.
They're trying to get Oprah to take his spot.
But Breiwei is already a convicted liar, remember?
But he's not. But see, now it's like how they're trying to make Bush look better compared to Trump.
Yeah.
Now Breiwei looks better compared to Charlie Rose. That's the way it works in public opinion.
Yeah.
Right?
And actually, the shoe just dropped, I think, yesterday. One of the top guys of Pixar caught in a scandal as well.
Yeah, and I also noticed that Meg Whitman just stepped down as the CEO of HP. That's interesting. Let's also talk about Harvey Weinstein. It's been a little while, and then we're going to wrap up the pervert parade here with just this. We could go on for the entire episode, but there is a disturbing angle. So we were just briefly touching on how when you're in a position of power, it's even more perverse. There's even another element to this. It's not just a position of power, and it's something that we have a hard time connecting with, your humble hosts, because we're not crazy rich with the ability to essentially have anything happen that we want. And when you are in an industry position of power and you're financially powerful, you really have control over people's lives. And it really is illustrated in this story about Harvey Weinstein hiring spies to monitor his accusers' lives.
And in a recent turn of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, the producer is now being accused of hiring private investigators to track actresses and journalists. The Israeli Black Cube company was hired in an attempt to squash any allegations against Weinstein. So joining me now.
Now think about that for a second. An Israeli for hire intelligence agency and private eye, if you want to give him that moniker, he has the ability to just call them up and say, hey, I need you to go after this person and dig up some dirt. So that way they don't say anything.
Wow.
Now that is probably way more prevalent than we can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Money and power.
That's Franken, what he did was he went too far. It's not like hiring Israeli spies. Bad.
That's so bad. I mean, it's so bad. And
yes.
Oh my gosh, it's Anderson.
Hey, Anderson, walking in. Hey.
All right, buddy, you ready to get into the sack? What do you say?
Let's get into a special turkey.
Mommy needs a joint.
And then it's going to be the high note right after
Mommy, you're going to get your joint later. But right now, it's time to carve in to the presidential. Oh, wait, we can't carve into the presidential turkey. It's been pardoned, yes. So, hey, Drumstick, come on over, hang out with me. We're going to go to the sack. And this week, first off, I want to say before jumping into the sack that, personally, I'm thankful for our incredible audience over at Patreon. Thanks to you guys,
hello, everybody.
We're able to sustain and do this awesome show. Every one of you who jumps on board, we're getting closer to our awesome goal. And so I just want to say a big thanks to you guys. Thank you to
Echoed.
Thank you to producer Matt. Thank you to Rakai for splicing things together. Thanks to you, Chris. Ange as well.
Who, us?
Thanks to the entire JB community. Thank you guys for being there for me as well during my time. And issues. So I just wanted to say a big thanks to all you guys.
And thanks to you, buddy. Hell of a co-host. A pro through and through.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Yeah, that one episode will go down in history. Anyway, so let's head to the sack. And Mickey writes in and says, "Gobble gobble, Chris Chase." So on my mind lately has been all of the different sexual assault and sexual misconduct allegations.
The pervert parade.
That's right. Our country was founded on innocent until proven guilty. This creates a problem when you have to believe the accusers no matter what. Yes, these people's feelings and emotions matter, but the person accused of the crime also matters. Without a proper trial, we have no business ruining people's careers over allegations. Podesta is a good example of this. There was clear evidence, and he was put away. It's a shame that these horrible things may have happened, but there's a statute of limitations for a reason. So, Mickey, you're absolutely right on the criminal side of things.
Especially we touched on a little bit. The court of public opinion is freaky, and with the fact that a lot of the cable news turns it into a reality television show, and then you have YouTube that like just highlights like the clips, and then the late night host just riff on it all, and it's a real cycle of buzz that it creates.
But there's some factors to acknowledge here. So first off, if you know, it's very hard, you know, especially if you've been sexually abused, to be able to even come forward in your own right. And
well,
say
we just
something.
covered why sometimes it can be pretty impossible. They'll hire an Israeli
spies to hold dirt over your head. Well, yes, criminally, you know what, you can't go to jail past statute of limitations. I don't think there should be a statute of limitations on this kind of creepish, awful, devilish, controlling, just throw any word out there like this. This is one of those. This is one of the bad words. This is one of those situations where these men, and then actually that's all been men, even with Terry Crews, deserve this. They've deserved what has been coming to them for these situations.
Yeah, a lot of them are rich and they avoided jail, right?
They avoided jail. They're rich. They held their power over their victims for many, many, many years, ruined women's lives. Because they couldn't, you know, go forward in their careers.
So let me ask you this, though.
It's just...
What about the one or two that are going to be genuinely innocent?
Well,
who will also, because there's so much momentum in public court to condemn these people, they will also be labeled as guilty.
So the ones that are innocent, you know, since the news is so quick right now to jump on board, and I'd be granting, you know, interviews left, right, center. I'd be doing whatever I needed to do to clear my name. You know, those kind of situations, you know. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in Mr. Roy Moore's place, for example, where he says he denies everything, right? But he refuses to have a debate with his Democratic opponent. He refuses to, you know, have an actual solid interview on air, even with, I mean, well, he did it with Hannity, and look how that turned out, right? So it's one of those situations where if you are truly innocent, you know what? Let me see it. You know, benefit of the doubt, right? But a lot of these guys with Charlie Rose,
how do you feel
Franken, Louis C.K., they come out and say, you know,
how do you feel about Bill Clinton in light of all this? Because there's like 20 women that have come out that have accused Bill Clinton of some form of rape or sexual misconduct. Of course, there's famous ones, Paula Jones, Monica Lewinsky, and other names that stand out as sort of brands at this point.
Right.
He had been on flights with known pedophiles to islands that were known as Lolita Island. Go Google Bill Clinton Lolita Island. I mean, that's a... What do you feel like how far back do we go? Do we go all the way back to the 80s and prosecute everybody? Where does it stop?
Well, what do the women want? I mean, you know, it's one of those situations where if they're going to come forward and you know, they deserve our support. They're the ones that are the victims here. And
it's not just women that are victims.
Well, of course. I'm saying, like, in this particular scenario, exception Terry Crews. And the victims of Kevin Spacey, which I know a lot of them were men too. It's one of those situations where it needs to be acknowledged. It needs, you know, the days of the money and power thing, it needs to stop. It's not right. It's not normal. It needs to stop completely. And you know what? Clinton, yeah, of course. I mean, all of it should be open and fair game. Clinton, Bush, you know, look into the Bush Senior thing. You know, I'm not, you know what I mean. I mean, it needs to be equal across the board here.
I am trying to come across as sympathetic. At the same time, part of me is concerned that bigger picture items like Yemen,
I agree,
like net neutrality, are being ignored in the wider discussion because of all of this. And while I do feel like it's all important, some of this stuff is from like 30 years ago or 10 years ago.
But it needs to set a precedent where, now we got your back. And when I'm saying we got your back is we're saying this out loud to people that have been affected by.
You gotta alter the culture in a way where it's no longer okay. I'm skeptical it can be done because I think
it's going to be very difficult.
I think it's inherently flawed with the power structure.
Totally it is. But you know what? If us talking about this pushes aside a small throwaway story that what might have been in the news that week, I'm for it. As long as it's not throwing out the things that are important right now with, Yemen and Russia and things that are happening that we're actually seeing on the news, and it's not pushing those things away, and we're still talking about them on this show, then I have no issue in talking about and throwing these, like, for example, I liked Louis C.K. I liked his comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's made the asshole list. My personal asshole list. I mean, Charlie Rose, congratulations, you just made the list.
And
sorry,
people is what grinds my gears.
It's a double shot.
You got two of them this week.
Yeah, man. So no, it's one of those things that that there should be no. You shouldn't have to let me say this. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you shouldn't be protected in these regards, and you shouldn't.
Is that the end of the sack there? Because we got to get to the high note.
Yeah, let's get to the high note.
All right.
Let's end it. Let's go into the break here.
Woo!
Sorry, guys. It's just that personally for me, I've seen people.
Yeah. I talked about my thing last week, and then I got shit on it by commenters, which is pretty great. I always like that a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, don't worry. I know what it feels like to get shit on. Wait, what?
Oh, that's a whole nother show, my
That's
friend.
a different show.
All right, let's get back into the high note.
Mommy needs a joint.
Mommy.
So there's a little girl who may just result in the debate around cannabis exploding at the federal level because this 12-year-old is suing Jeff Sessions.
A 12-year-old girl is spearheading a campaign to legalize medical marijuana across the whole country. Alexis Bortel says she and her family had no choice but to move from their Texas home to Colorado to treat her severe epilepsy. Now her family and a handful of others are suing Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the DEA. They're demanding cannabis for the treatment of their illnesses, diseases, and medical conditions. Barry Peterson spoke with Alexis. He is in Denver, Colorado with her story. Barry, good morning.
This is one of those stories that really triggers me. So obviously it's the parents, and it's a group of parents that are suing Jeff Sessions. But this is one of those stories that really triggers me because it ends up hanging its hat on one of these old tropes where we just need more research. But we'll get to there. First, marvel in how well-spoken this 12-year-old girl is, and tell me if she's not the perfect advocate for this cause. It's amazing.
Good morning. Well, here at Medicine Man, they grow a lot of the marijuana that they use in their pot product.
They still got to do these walk through the pot,
Yeah.
It's so classic.
At least he's not wearing a mask on this one.
Yeah. So he's about to set up the 12-year-old girl here, but first you got to let him saunter on through the cannabis plants.
Now, even though marijuana is legal in Colorado for recreational use, there's still a debate about its value to treat medical conditions. But one family thinks this is nothing less than a lifesaver.
Well, ever since I've been on this cannabis, I've actually been seizure-free for today. It's 974 days, so we're coming up on 1,000, so I think that's pretty good.
Isn't that amazing?
Makes me want to hug her.
I know.
I mean, just like good for you.
She's
man.
she's like super I've been
or high five or whatever. I don't.
She's like legit excited that she's been 1,000 days without a seizure.
Been on this cannabis.
That's
I've
her
actually
life,
been
man.
seizure-free for today. It's 974 days, so we're coming up on 1,000.
She's keeping
so I think that's
track because it's a big deal to her.
Good
This is her life.
Because this was once the life of Alexis Bortel. Seizures every few days, as seen in these videos taken at the direction of her doctors. Her parents say epilepsy medications didn't work, and there was even talk of brain surgery.
She's obviously a brilliant 12-year-old. She's extremely well-spoken. She's thought deeply about the questions that this D-bag's about to ask her, and it's a shame to give her. She would be altered by brain surgery, and her life is completely devastated by these seizures. And here she is on cannabis. She is under the influence of THC during this interview, a 12-year-old child, and she gives better answers than most adults that get interviewed by the news.
You call epilepsy?
Well, I call it my seizure monster.
But this seems to tame the seizure monster, an oil made from marijuana taken twice a day.
Is she
Her
just
family
doing the CBD oil? Is
Yeah,
that what she
under
doing?
the tongue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lived in Texas.
So by the way,
the only way for that to work, though, there is some THC in there for it to really be effective.
Right, but it's basically the non-high part of it, you guys. So when you guys talking about the effects of things, this doesn't do that kind of stuff.
Where they couldn't get the oil they needed, but they could in Colorado, where both medical and recreational pot are allowed. For her father, Dean Bortel, the decision to move here 3 years ago was an easy one.
I would die for her, right? So the least I could do is uproot my life and give her a chance at the exact same freedoms and future I had.
You'd do it again?
Twice on Sunday.
Are you adjusted to being here?
We've been here about 3 years, so we're adjusting.
Alexis hopes the lawsuit will make medical marijuana legal across the country.
Do you think it's unfair that this medicine is not available to everybody in the United States?
I think it's really unfair because I feel like they're basically punishing us because we're sick.
But some medical experts are not sure.
See, this is the trope they always go to sow doubt, and it relies on a fundamental assumption that I disagree with. And the assumption is, until we've done proper research, we should ban this substance everywhere.
No.
Flip that around. How about, until we've done the research that says it's dangerous, let people experiment. They can be our test animals in the wild.
Chris, I always thought that
the land of the brave.
We
Chase.
have the freedom of expression, and we have the
Free
freedom.
and the brave.
If I wanted to, I could walk into traffic and kill myself.
Yeah, but just don't put a weed in your body.
Jacqueline French is the chief scientific officer of the Epilepsy Foundation.
We really need more research.
Money.
To find out what's helping. What's
Actually, to be fair, it's not just about that. It's
they need the research because it's illegal and they haven't been able to do the proper research. I understand that.
It's the feds to allow them to do the freaking research too.
You cannot deny the results and this is not the first child epilepsy case we've talked about either.
You're right.
And so it's almost disingenuous to sit there and say there's no evidence because there is almost a overwhelming avalanche of evidence just in the consumer market. Now, because they haven't gotten the $1 million or $1 billion they need to do their own personal research, and because it's extremely hard federally to get the funding, they can't conclusively say, according to our research, but they have millions of people now in our own country that are taking this stuff and it's significantly changing their lives. And it's not just children, it's adults too.
Of the Epilepsy Foundation.
We really need more research to find out what's helping, what's hurting, whether people should opt for this over some other options that they may have.
I mean, everything else seems to have
What
side
are you
effects.
trying to say, lady? Because first off, she tried all the options. I don't know if you saw that clip, lady,
with all of
all the 30 different medications that little girl had and tried to take. You know, screw you. Okay, really, screw you, because you know what? This is her last option. Her family decided to uproot and move.
Right.
She left her friends.
As if they went from, well, you know what, that ibuprofen didn't work, so let's go to Colorado.
You know, screw you. She did try all of her options. She tried everything. And this was her last resort.
And this is like one of those things where it's like the quality of life isn't just she stops having seizures. She stops having seizures and she doesn't have all of the other side effects like diarrhea, like the shakes, like the lack of appetite, and all of the other things that they had from the medications that didn't even completely solve the problem.
You know.
So you go from a complete quality of life difference, and they just sit here and they waffle and say, not enough research. Fine, I completely agree.
Right.
Do a lot more research. Spend billions of dollars researching. In the meantime, let the consumer market try this shit out.
Well, and it's not only that, man. I say it should go to, short of, you know, unless you're like, you know, breaking the law of like, you know, killing somebody, ripping somebody off or whatever. What if it was crack cocaine? Okay, I know this is crazy to say, but what if it was crack cocaine that made her a normal person again? And it was scientific. They couldn't figure it out why, but it was crack cocaine.
You Gary Johnson, not liberal.
No, libertarian.
Libertarian,
But what I'm trying to say is this is what works for her.
Yeah.
This is her solution.
This is where I was going with it,
Yeah.
too. I know. That's what gets me. That's why, while I agree.
She's not hurting anybody.
We need more research. At the same time, that can't be that sounds like an anti-intellectual answer. It sounds anti-intellectual. Let people govern their own lives and self-experiment.
Oh, yeah, and let her go and wait through the red tape, Chris, while she's suffering. While she's missing her childhood years and having kids tease her because some researchers want, we need to wait 5 years before this gets approved, or 7 years, or 20 years.
That's just awful.
You know what I mean?
Evil.
It's like that. This is her life.
Are not sure.
I
Jacqueline
hate those
French
people.
is the chief scientific officer of the Epilepsy Foundation.
We really need more research to find out what's helping, what's hurting, whether people should opt for this over some other options that they may have.
Alexis has turned her epilepsy into her cause, making soap and donating the proceeds to charity, even writing a book.
What?
But all she really wants is just to be a kid.
And does it make you also feel more normal in your regular life?
Yes.
Why?
Because I can, let's say, have a sleepover at a friend's house without having a seizure.
Why did you think people would listen to a 12-year-old?
Well, I feel like it wouldn't really matter because it's the right thing to do. And I don't think I need to be over 18 to do the right thing.
Jeez, that's nailing it. She's nailing it, dude.
So
it's just like inspiring. It's
if
like,
you're not inspired,
man,
check your pulse.
Man, right? I mean, it's the 12-year-old girl's got to figure it out. How come Jeff Sessions can't figure it out?
Because Jeff Sessions hates everything that could be good for you.
He's got to look at the research. Well, maybe this lawsuit will go somewhere. We'll follow it on the show. Now, listen, the overtime's coming up. It's got a whole bunch of more stuff. But this right here, this is your protein and veggies. If you got to check out, if you got to go.
Yeah.
If you can't stick around for some delicious pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
Well, we just want to leave you with a little parting wisdom. Some advice to get you through the holiday weekend. Perhaps reach out to my good buddy, Mr. Chase, on the Twitter. Where would they do that, Chase?
They can follow me at Nunes.
Oh!
Nunes is my Twitter handle. You'll see all my lovely tidbits and cool things that I do. I also have a Discord, discord.gg/geekgamertv. You know, if you're looking to hang out, please let me know. By the way, Chris,
yes, sir.
You got the Thanksgiving holiday coming up.
Man.
No doubt. You're going to probably tweet about turkey,
fired
possibly.
up. Ready to go.
Maybe do some vlogging about it.
At Chris LAS. Go there. Follow me there. That's where I do the tweeting. Also follow the network at Jupiter Signal.
It's a good idea.
Join us live, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to find out when. It'll get converted to your local time. And then, why not join our Unfiltered Discord channel dedicated to the Unfiltered Show?
What?
Discord.me/JupiterColony. There
Love
is an
that.
Unfilter channel in there. Mr. Chase.
Yes, Chris.
In the meantime, if you just like to send us something to read behind the scenes, there's one more resource to give out.
Yes.
It's jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. Everybody can get a hold there. And if you want to get your note on the show, of course, you got to be in Club 33 over at patreon.com/unfiltered.
What?
Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Unfiltered program. And we'll see you right back here next week.
Mommy needs a joint.
I say Boulder Dash. While you're laughing, the hackers are dropping malware into your system.
Yeah, we were a little early, I suppose. Yeah, we were a little early.
Yeah, but look how long it went.
yeah, good thing. It was a good thing, really. Jeez Louise. jbtitles.com, and also let's check the Discord. I think net neutrality is probably what we should lead with.
Totally.
And it was something we talked quite a bit about. That's why it was so long. Soiled rose, rose, wintered rose, information sidewalk, net slow lane, information slow lanes, buffering freedom. That's from the Discord over at JB Titles. You know, I had what if net neutrality dies as my title suggestion.
That's a really good one.
I think so too, right? Because people are going to be wondering about that until the 14th.
I like it.
Yeah, should we just make it easy?
Box
peasy?
it, ship it, and it's a Black Friday special.
Boom. Are you going to be watching for Black Friday deals?
You know, I'm looking. I'm looking at 3 different things.
Really?
3, and I don't.
You just got your eye on stuff.
3 different things, totally different things.
Yeah.
Thing 1 is a new AV receiver that can support
Ooh,
4K.
Good call. I should be looking for that. I need. Shit, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just because of the fact I have my Denon and I love it, but it doesn't support 4K. So I was thinking, well, before I upgrade to 4K for my TV, I want to make sure my AV equipment's ready to go. So that's one thing.
Good point.
Second, of course, is TVs. I am looking at 4Ks.
Really?
But
So I'm not ready to do it
But
yet.
in the OLED arena.
All right.
Those
All
are
right.
beautiful. And then third, DJI Mavic Pro.
Oh, good call. Yeah, the Mavic Pro would be great.
Because I want to get a lot of practice in, because I might be taking Unfilter remote to Iceland.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Get some great drone footage.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. That's the last live show of the week, but we still have a special Ask Noah coming out, War Stories Edition, and User Error. So there's still more JB content coming out for the week, but I think this is our last live show until next week. So happy Turkey Day to everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. If
Have a
you
great
celebrate it, and if you don't, then have a great day just hanging out on the internet, listening to everybody talk about their turkeys. I apologize for all of us preemptively. All right. Thanks for being here, guys.
See you guys.
Made of steel and bolts so we can try and save the decent white God-fearing folks. Strangers moving into my own backyard. Hometown battlefield times is hard. Crime is rising on my horizon, and it's getting mighty hard for folks to find a job. A lot of folks say that the times are changing, but the more things change, the more they stay the same.